Chapter 1779. Elder Tianji, is this what you want? Zhao Guocheng didn't answer Ningyu. Instead, his gaze shifted to Elder Tianji. Although you're a senior, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to get something without risking anything. We've already investigated your matter. In order to help Yunmu, Elder Tianji could only bite the bullet. The Four Empires have experts stationed in Four Corner City. You're now the target of everyone. The key is no different from a hot potato in your hands. Giving it to Ningyu for safekeeping isn't a bad choice. Zhao Guiqing's chest heaved up and down. It was obvious he was furious, but soon, Zhao Guocheng took a deep breath. I want 50% of the immortal crystals in the mine. Hearing Zhao Guiqing's words, Ningyu spat out a mouthful of wine. 50%? He really dared to ask for it. A late-stage Sky Supreme asking for 50% of the immortal crystals? His appetite was a bit big. 5. Ningyu stretched out 5 fingers and said in an unquestionable tone, I can give you 5 immortal crystals at most, nothing more. Zhao Guiqing's face was ashen. He'd seen haggling before, but he'd never seen such a high price. According to Zhao Guiqing's calculations, if all the immortal crystals in the mine were mined, there would be at least 1,000 of them. This mid-stage Sky Supreme in front of him had raised the price from 500 to 5. How terrifying! Without my key, none of you can pass through the Bronze Gate, Zhao Guocheng said fiercely. Also, I've already told you before that if I don't return within a certain amount of time, the key will be destroyed. Send the guest off. Ningyu shrugged. He didn't express any opinion. In any case, the one who needed the immortal crystals was Elder Tianji, not him. Even if Zhao Guocheng didn't hand over the key, Ningyu didn't care. Do you think you can't open the Bronze Gate without the key? Elder Tianji said. I've received news that the Four Empires seem to have joined forces. In 2 days, they'll gather at the back mountain of Four Corner City to blast open the Bronze Gate. Rumble. The news brought by the Elder of Heavenly Secrets was like a sudden clap of thunder, causing Zhao Guocheng to freeze on the spot. The reason why he was able to sit firmly in his position as the city lord and deal with the Four Empires was because he had the key, the only key that could open the bronze door. Although the defense of the Bronze Gate was very strong, and even a primary sage realm warrior would find it difficult to break it open, the Bronze Gate was not as strong as the Bronze Gate. However, if one sage could not do it, what about 2? What about 3? What about 4? There were at least 7 or 8 sages from the 4 great empires combined. Moreover, the Purple Sun Empire also had a middle-stage Saint Realm Warrior. Perhaps if they joined forces, they could really blast open the bronze door. Zhao Guocheng knew better than anyone that once the bronze door was blasted open, he would no longer have any value in living. There was no need for these martial artists in front of him to act. His life would definitely be taken by the powerhouses of the Four Empires. After all, the patience of the people from the Four Empires had been worn out recently. The defense of the bronze door is very strong. Even a warrior at the middle stage of the Saint Realm can forget about breaking it open. Zhao Guocheng roared. However, even he wasn't confident in his own words. Elder Tianji, you guys have a good discussion. Come and find me when you're done. At this moment, Ningyu stood up and walked out of the private room. When he reached the door, Ningyu stopped and turned around. I want 90% of the immortal crystals in the immortal crystal vein. After saying that, Ningyu led Ning Lu and Dark Monarch Ning Lu and the rest out of the room without looking back. In the private room, Elder Tianji looked slightly disappointed when he saw Ningyu leaving. In order to help Yunmu get the immortal crystals, he didn't even hesitate to offend Ningyu. In fact, Elder Tianji's heart was as clear as a mirror. Previously in the giant shield city, he protected all of Ningyu's friends. Now that he asked for Ningyu's help, it was only natural that Ningyu wouldn't refuse. Most importantly, they were the ones who schemed against Ningyu first, causing Ningyu to be unhappy. Ningyu was a person who made a clear distinction between love and hate. I'll definitely return what I owe you, but don't treat me like a fool. How troublesome. After leaving the private room, Ningyu and the rest returned to their respective rooms. In the room, Ninglu frowned slightly and asked in confusion, Ningyu, why don't you seem interested in the immortal crystal vein? Don't tell me you don't know the value of the immortal crystal vein. It was no wonder that Ninglu was confused. In the immortal spirit realm, immortal crystals were the highest grade of essence crystals. Using immortal crystals to cultivate could often achieve twice the results with half the effort. Hence, Ninglu was very puzzled that Ningyu didn't seem interested in the immortal crystal vein. Immortal crystals are good stuff. Who doesn't want them? Ningyu smiled and said, but before you snatch the immortal crystals, you have to use your brain. You said that I don't have a brain? Why don't we spar? Ninglu was furious and wanted to spar with Ningyu. For you guys to be able to escape from Giant Shield City this time, you should mainly thank Elder Tianji, followed by Yunmu and the Talisman Supremacy. Ningyu slowly said, so in this matter, we owe Elder Tianji and the others a gargantuan favor. We have to return the favor we owe. This is a matter of course. But Elder Tianji treats me like a fool and wants to trick me. I can't tolerate this. As he said that, Ningyu's face darkened and became very scary. How did he trick you? Lu Wei asked. In the room, other than Ningyu and Ninglu, the Dark Emperor and Lu Wei were also there. In the private room, Lu Wei and Yunmu had argued a few times. But Lu Wei didn't see that Ningyu was tricked. In Lu Wei's opinion, if someone told you about the immortal crystal vein, you shouldn't have that kind of attitude towards them. Didn't you guys notice? That Zhao Guocheng knows Elder Tianji and Yunmu. Ningyu paced back and forth in the room before saying, if I'm not wrong, they want to push us out and keep an eye on the people from the 4 empires while they reap the benefits. If you guys are working together, that's how it should be. Lu Wei nodded. That's the crux of the matter. Ningyu's face darkened again. Usually it's fine for me to stand out, but now is a crucial period. If we offend the people from the 4 empires in Four Corner City, even if we reach Divine Dan City, we're destined to have a hard time. Each of the 4 great empires has a connection with the higher planes. This time the Alchemist Association has sent out the hero invitations. I don't want to become the target of public criticism the moment I arrive in Divine Dan City. I see. Hearing Ningyu's explanation, Lu Wei and Ninglu nodded lightly. After Ningyu's analysis, things seemed to be much simpler. Then what do we do now? The Dark Emperor lazily laid on the bed, raised his head to look at Ningyu, and asked, wait. Chapter 1780. Creak. Not long after Ningyu sat down, the door to the room was pushed open. Zhao Guocheng has agreed to your request. He only wants 5 immortal crystals. The elder of Tianji walked in and smiled. As for the remaining immortal crystals, I'll split it with you. Where's the key? Ningyu stretched out his right hand. The key to the bronze door. Zhao Guocheng went back to get it, said the elder of Tianji. That's good. Have a good rest for the next 2 days. We'll meet up with the people from the 4 empires in 2 days. Ningyu shrugged and said lightly, I won't disturb you anymore. I'll come find you in 2 days. The elder of Tianji quietly left the room and closed the door. Is he really the elder of Tianji? Not long after the elder of Tianji left, the Dark Emperor wagged his tail and asked in confusion. Back in the Giant Shield City, the elder of Tianji was in charge of everything. What does it have to do with you whether or not other people are guiding the country? Ningyu rolled his eyes. You're only a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme. You have to advance to the Heavenly Supreme in the next 2 days. Otherwise, you won't get any immortal crystals. No. The Dark Emperor immediately jumped up from the bed when he heard Ning Yu's words. Advancing from a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme to a Heavenly Supreme in 2 days might seem easy, but it was actually harder than ascending to the heavens. An ordinary genius might take 2 days to advance from a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme to a Heavenly Supreme. But for the Dark Emperor, 2 days wasn't enough. One must know that the Dark Emperor was a Sky Devourer Hound. Every time a Sky Devourer Hound advanced, it would consume a terrifying amount of energy. It could be said that the energy required for the Dark Emperor to advance from a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme to a Heavenly Supreme was enough for 3 or 4 pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereigns to become Heavenly Supreme. I just advanced to a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme not long ago. How can I advance to a Heavenly Supreme in 2 days? If you don't want to give me the immortal crystals, just say it. I don't have any objections. The Dark Emperor Tower lowered his head and said, Anyway, it's impossible for me to advance from a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme to a Heavenly Supreme in 2 days. Anyone can. No one can do it, right? Ning Yu interrupted the Dark Emperor's words and took out a small jade bottle from his bosom. He shook it and said, What if we add this thing? Everything is. I'm going to find it. His voice was interrupted by Ning Yu. The Dark Emperor was originally a little angry, but very quickly the Dark Emperor jumped up from the bed and snatched the jade bottle from Ning Yu's hand. Kirin blood. You actually have Qilin blood. The Dark Emperor was extremely excited. He did not expect that Ning Yu actually had Qilin blood. The Dark Emperor was a heaven-devouring hound, a purple-gold heaven-devouring hound. In ancient times, the purple-gold sky-devouring hound was comparable to a Qilin, with a drop of Qilin blood for the Dark Emperor to refine, not to mention reaching the Heavenly Supreme Realm. He was confident that he could even reach the middle phase, Heavenly Supreme Realm. Me too. Suddenly, a voice rang out in the room. Hearing this voice, Ning Yu was stunned at first. Then his gaze shifted to Lu Wei, because this voice came from Lu Wei. Why are you looking at me? It's Furball. Being stared at by Ning Yu, Lu Wei hurriedly pushed Furball out and said, Furball also wants Qilin blood. Little Black has Qilin blood. I want it too. Furball poked his head out and said to Ning Yu, Give me a drop. No, give me 2 drops of Qilin blood. Ning Yu's face was filled with black lines. At first, Ning Yu was still shocked that Furball could speak. Now, Ning Yu had a sad face and felt a little helpless. Furball could not speak, so he could still rely on a few drops of Qilin blood. But now Furball could speak, and the first thing he asked was for Qilin blood. Previously, Ning Yu had given all the Qilin blood in his body to Human Demon. But when he left Giant Shield City, Ning Yu shamelessly asked for 4 drops of Qilin blood from Little Qilin. Half a drop was given to Bada and Shenemo for them to develop Supreme Hull. 1 drop was given to Dark Emperor, allowing him to advance to Sky Supreme in 2 days. As for the remaining 2.5 drops, Ning Yu planned to keep them for when he was in danger. After all, Qilin blood was very effective for healing. Furball wanted 2 drops of Qilin blood at once. How could Ning Yu not be sad? At most 1 drop. Ning Yu threw a drop of Qilin blood to Furball and said, Your cultivation is half-step Sky Supreme. Advance to early stage Sky Supreme in 2 days. Only 1 drop. Furball was clearly unhappy after catching the Qilin blood and pouted. If I have 2 drops of Qilin blood, I can at least advance to late-stage Sky Supreme. Ning Yu pretended he didn't hear it. Little Qilin had personally said not to ask him for more Qilin blood in the future. Hence, every drop of Qilin blood he used was 1 drop less. Lu Wei, you can have this half drop of Qilin blood. Ning Yu took out the other half drop of Qilin blood and handed it to Lu Wei. Ever since Lu Wei's extreme Yin physique was broken, her purple spirit constitution was revealed. Purple spirit constitution allowed her to advance rapidly. In a short period of time, Lu Wei's cultivation soared and was now a first-grade Earth Supreme. Although Lu Wei was only a first-grade Earth Supreme, Ningyu believed that Lu Wei would definitely advance to Sky Supreme in a short period of time. Because as Lu Wei's cultivation increased, Ningyu discovered that there was a terrifying energy in Lu Wei's body. Bit by bit, this energy leaked out for Lu Wei's cultivation. As a result, Lu Wei's cultivation could advance by leaps and bounds without the need for crystals or elixirs. You should keep this drop of Qilin blood for yourself. I might not need it. Lu Wei looked at the half-drop of Qilin blood in the jade bottle and threw it to Ningyu. Recently, there seems to be something in my mind. Anyway, before I advance to Sky Supreme, it's not suitable for me to devour all kinds of energy. All right. Since Lu Wei didn't want it, Ningyu didn't continue to refuse. Half a drop of Qilin blood didn't seem like much, but it could save his life at a crucial moment. Ningyu, aren't you being too unkind? Ning Lu rolled his eyes and said, in the entire room besides me, you've given everyone else Qilin blood. What about me? What do you want the Qilin blood for? Ningyu asked. To cultivate, of course. Ning Lu said angrily, give me the rest of the Qilin blood, and I'll be of great help to you on this trip. Stop! Don't try to trick my Qilin blood. Ningyu hurriedly threw the Qilin blood into the Tower of Ascension and took out a separate layer to ensure that Ning Lu couldn't come into contact with it. Don't worry. When we get the immortal crystals, I'll let you devour them to your heart's content. Then Ningyu patted his chest and promised, how much energy does a drop of Qilin blood contain? Think about it. 1,000 immortal crystals are placed in front of you. How grand and spectacular would that be? Chapter 1781. I don't want to talk to you. Rolling his eyes at Ningyu, Ning Lu left the room. The fairy crystal vein was located in the back mountain of Four Corner City, and one had to pass through the bronze gate to reach it. It seemed that Ningyu had the key to the bronze gate and had an absolute advantage. However, Ningyu, who possessed the key, became the common enemy of the Four Empires. Therefore, it was not as easy as it seemed to be to gain an advantage in the trip to the fairy crystal vein 2 days later. I'm leaving too. Holding Furball in his arms, Lu Swan left with Ning Lu. This room is mine. Ningyu, go find a room. The Dark Emperor laid on the bed and said to Ningyu impatiently, with a drop of Qilin blood, I can at least advance to the middle stage Sky Supreme in 2 days. My cultivation will be the same as yours. Ning, you didn't care about the Dark Emperor. Even if the Dark Emperor asked him to stay, he would never stay. Creak. Ning, you gently closed the door and got a room on the side. Buzz. As soon as Ningyu entered the room, the void trembled and a middle-aged man slowly appeared. Tell me. Ningyu found a chair and asked, how many sages are there in Four Corner City? According to my investigation, there are a total of 6 sage realm warriors in Four Corner City. Zhang Chang sorted out his thoughts and replied, among them there are 2 early-stage sage realm warriors from the Jin family of Thousand Leaves Empire, 2 early-stage sage realm warriors from the Lan family of Cloudy Wind Empire, 1 early-stage sage realm warrior from the Xia family of Heavenly Dragon Empire, and 1 early-stage sage realm warrior from the Purple Sun Empire. If you were to fight with the middle-stage sage realm warrior from the Purple Sun Empire, how confident are you? To win? Ningyu asked with a frown. I basically have no chance of winning. Zhang Chang shook his head and said, the middle-stage sage realm warrior from the Purple Sun Empire is terrifyingly powerful. An ordinary late-stage sage realm warrior is no match for him. Oh, hearing Zhang Chang's explanation, Ningyu was slightly interested. A sage intermediate-stage cultivator would not feel any pressure against a sage late-stage cultivator. From this, it could be seen that the saint of the Purple Sun Empire was a genius among geniuses. Of course, there was another possibility. That was the sage of the Purple Sun Empire was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. His real cultivation was far beyond the middle stage of the sage. He had reached the late stage of the sage, or even the peak of the sage. The Purple Sun Empire's saint is called Ziyun. Even in the devil's spirit realm, she's famous. Zhang Chang continued. I understand. Don't go anywhere for the next 2 days. Stay here and protect the Dark Emperor and the others. Ningyu waved his hand and motioned Zhang Chang to leave. The matter of being a protector couldn't be sloppy. Ningyu did not want anyone to interrupt the Dark Monarch and Furball at the crucial moment of their advancement. Looks like I have to increase my strength as soon as possible. After Zhang Chang left, Ningyu recalled the cultivation method of the 11th style of Emperor God Incantation. Ningyu had already mastered the 10th style of Emperor God Incantation. When he practiced the 11th style, Heaven Breaking, no matter how hard Ningyu tried, he could not succeed. Now that Ningyu had advanced to the middle stage Sky Supreme and his soul power had reached the early 9th grade, Ningyu naturally wanted to practice Heaven Breaking again. Emperor God Incantation, Supreme 9 Purities, Sword Art, Netherworld, Samsara Palm. These 3 martial skills were the most terrifying martial skills that Ningyu had encountered since his rebirth. Among them, the Emperor God Incantation was even more mysterious. Ningyu had already practiced the 8th style of the Supreme 9 Purity Sword Art, Sword Wave Creation, and was only 1 step away from the 9th style, Sword Wave Destruction. As for the Emperor God Incantation, he had also practiced the 10th style Heaven Breaking. As for the Netherworld, Samsara Palm, Ningyu had practiced the 10th style, Yin Yang Palm, and was not far away from the 11th style, Fortune Palm. During the 2 days of cultivation in Square City, Ningyu had decided to improve these 3 martial skills to a higher level. For every martial skill, he needed to grasp at least 1.5 more moves. Otherwise, he would not have much of an advantage in the fight for the immortal crystal vein. Heaven Breaking. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu's primordial chi surged in his body as he took out the Black Dragon Sword. Crack! While Ningyu was secretly cultivating, in a secret chamber in the city, Lord's Mansion in Square City, Zhao Guocheng smashed the table and chair beside him and said coldly, Are we really going to give the key to Ningyu? What else? Apart from Zhao Guocheng, there were 3 other martial artists in the secret chamber. Without a doubt, one was Tianji Oldman, one was Yun Mu, and the last one was Talisman Martial Venerable. Yun Mu's expression was very calm, and he did not seem angry at all. That Ningyu's cultivation is only at the mid-heavenly supreme realm. In my opinion, Zhao Guocheng's face turned cold as he reached out his hand and gently drew a line across his neck. That's not a bad choice. Yun Mu smiled faintly. Nonsense. Tianji Oldman stomped his right foot on the ground and said angrily, Do as Ningyu says. Do whatever he tells you to do. Otherwise, don't blame me for turning against you. Zhao Guocheng was slightly dumbfounded when he saw Tianji Oldman's rage. Zhao Guocheng shifted his gaze to Yun Mu with a questioning look in his eyes. Give the key to Ningyu. Yun Mu did not want to waste her breath on Zhao Guocheng. She waved her hand and said, Then personally contact the people from the 4 great empires. Tell them that you have already given up the immortal crystal vein. All right. Zhao Guocheng's eyes lit up as he hurriedly took his leave. After Zhao Guocheng left, Tianji Oldman frowned slightly and said, I advise you not to make an enemy out of Ningyu and not to scheme against Ningyu. I'm not scheming against Ningyu. I'm just getting him to work in advance. Yun Mu shrugged and said, I can't wait for 2 days. As long as we can chase the people from the 4 great empires out of Four Corner City, the immortal crystal vein will be ours. I can promise you that when I recover to my peak state, I will do 3 things for Ningyu unconditionally. Tianji Oldman opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but did not say anything in the end. Actually, Tianji Oldman was in a difficult position. On one hand, He did not want to make an enemy out of Ningyu. On the other hand, he wanted Yunmu to recover to her peak state as soon as possible. As for the reason, not long after they left Giant Shield City, Tenji Oldman had personally performed a divination. According to the divination, Ningyu had a grand destiny and would definitely become an important figure in the future. As for Yunmu, it was getting more and more blurry, as if someone was deliberately hiding the divination for her. Since both sides were not simple, Tenji Oldman decided to take the middle path. He would not favor anyone. Of course, although Tenji Oldman wanted to not favor anyone, Tenji Oldman had a good relationship with Yunmu in his previous life. In terms of judgment, he would naturally favor Yunmu. Chapter 1782. How powerful can a mid-heavenly sovereign be? To be on the safe side, Zhao Guocheng disguised himself as the owner of Square Bank before leaving the city lord's mansion. After leaving the city lord's mansion, Zhao Guocheng didn't head to Square Restaurant immediately. Instead, he wandered around the streets of Square City for 2 hours. After confirming that no one was following him, Zhao Guocheng swaggered into Square Restaurant. Should I test Ningyu's strength? In a private room near the window on the second floor of Square Restaurant, Zhao Guocheng tapped his fingers on the table as he stared out of the window, deep in thought. Elder Tianji and Yunmu had described Ningyu to be so incredible, but Zhao Guocheng didn't really believe them. In terms of cultivation, Ningyu was only a mid-sky supreme, while Zhao Guocheng was a late sky supreme. In terms of age, Zhao Guocheng was much older than Ningyu. In terms of these two aspects, Ningyu was at an absolute disadvantage. Why don't we give it a try when we give him the key later? Zhao Guocheng suddenly made up his mind to test Ningyu. Zhao Guocheng stood up and walked toward Ningyu's room. However, just as Zhao Guocheng got up, he suddenly stopped. Zhao Guocheng shifted his gaze and stared at the familiar figure on the street outside the window. Xia Tao from the Heavenly Dragon Empire. Due to his frequent contact with the 4 great empires, Zhao Guocheng immediately recognized the old man on the street. The old man looked ordinary on the surface and was only a first-grade Earth Supreme, but that wasn't the case. Zhao Guocheng knew that Xia Tao was a Peak Sky Supreme, one of the 3 Peak Sky Supremes left in the Heavenly Dragon Empire. Why is he here? Did he discover me? Zhao Guocheng's expression changed. In order not to be discovered, he had already disguised himself as the owner of Square Bank. If he was discovered, the consequences would be dire. The key was still in his hands and hadn't been given to Ningyu. If the key was snatched from Ningyu, it wouldn't have much to do with him. But if the key was snatched from his hands, he would be finished. Therefore, at this moment, Zhao Guocheng decided to quickly hand the key to Ningyu to prevent any unforeseen events. Something's wrong. As soon as he stepped out of the room, Zhao Guocheng retracted his hand. Since Xia Tao is acting so cautiously, it means that he doesn't want the people from the other 3 empires to know about his visit to the Square Restaurant. Zhao Guocheng rolled his eyes and decided to wait and see. As long as the others did not come, Xia Tao alone would not be able to snatch the key from his hands. Let him try Ningyu first. Zhao Guocheng calmed himself down and carefully released his perception, paying close attention to Xia Tao's movements. Outside the Square Restaurant, Xia Tao looked to his left and right. After making sure that no one was following him, he carefully entered the Square Restaurant. Dong dong! Xia Tao did not stop at the first floor of the Square Restaurant. Instead, he headed straight for the second floor. Is he really here for me? Noticing that Xia Tao was walking towards the second floor, Zhao Guocheng became very nervous and decided to run away at any moment. Dong! As it turned out, Zhao Guocheng was overthinking things. After arriving at the second floor, Xia Tao did not stop either. Instead, he turned and headed for the third floor. Ningyu is on the 4th floor of the restaurant. Zhao Guocheng clenched his fists tightly, his face filled with anxiety. Zhao Guocheng hoped that Xia Tao would go find Ningyu and confront Ningyu. In fact, Zhao Guocheng had already made up his mind. After Xia Tao took down Ningyu, he would immediately leave the restaurant and return to the city, Lord Manor. If Xia Tao couldn't take down Ningyu, well, Zhao Guocheng had not thought about this. Therefore, although Zhao Guocheng looked nervous on the surface, he was actually very excited. After all, Xia Tao was a pinnacle Sky Supreme, while Ningyu was only a mid-stage Sky Supreme. A mid-stage Sky Supreme against a pinnacle Sky Supreme. No matter how he looked at it, Ningyu should be the one to lose. Stop! On the 4th floor of the square restaurant, Zhang Chang reached out to stop Xia Tao, who was about to enter. Go back to where you came from. Are you sure you want to stop me? Xia Tao looked Zhang Chang up and down, then pointed at his nose. The square restaurant isn't owned by your family. Why can't I go in? Because Zhang Chang had concealed his aura, Xia Tao didn't know that he was a mid-stage sage. Under such circumstances, Xia Tao naturally wouldn't give Zhang Chang a good look. I said you can't go in, so you can't. Zhang Chang wanted to reprimand him, but he suddenly changed his tone. Fine, you can go in, but I won't be responsible for anything that happens. At least you know what's good for you. Xia Tao didn't hear the hidden meaning in Zhang Chang's words. He shrugged and walked straight to the room where Ningyu was. A moment later, Xia Tao arrived at the door of Ningyu's room. Bang! Bang! Xia Tao stretched out his right hand and gently knocked on the door. Creak! The door was quickly pushed open from the inside. Whoosh! The moment the door opened, Xia Tao clenched his right hand into a fist and punched at Ningyu. Xia Tao used all his strength in this attack. He instantly exerted the aura of a peak Sky Supreme and pressed down on Ningyu. Even a lion would use all its strength to catch a rabbit. Xia Tao knew this. Therefore, he didn't hold back at all. He wanted to take down Ningyu in one move. Heaven-shattering. Ningyu had expected Xia Tao to attack. He didn't ask Zhang Chang to stop Xia Tao because he wanted to test the power of heaven-shattering. After a few hours of cultivation, Ningyu had completely mastered heaven-shattering. After all, his soul power had reached the early stage 9th grade and his cultivation had reached the mid-stage Sky Supreme. It wasn't particularly difficult for Ningyu to master heaven-shattering in a few hours. Shit! Xia Tao's expression changed dramatically before his fist could hit Ningyu. He hurriedly retreated. However, it was too late for Xia Tao to retreat now. The black dragon sword drew a beautiful arc in the air. Crack! A crisp sound was heard. Ah! Xia Tao screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Retreat! Xia Tao looked down at his palm on the ground. The first thought that came to his mind was not to fight, but to run. Since his opponent could cut off his palm in one move, it meant that he was well prepared. If he didn't run now, he wouldn't have the chance later. Xia Tao tore open the void and forced his way in. Crack! However, as soon as Xia Tao entered the void, he flew out like a dead dog and fell heavily in front of Ningyu. Several of Xia Tao's ribs were broken, and he looked extremely weak. You continued to keep watch. Ningyu waved his hand at the void and then kicked Xia Tao into the room. Gulp! On the 2nd floor of the square restaurant, Zhao Guocheng sat on the chair and couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. How could Ningyu be so strong? Chapter 1783. Tell me, what's your name? Who told you that I'm here? Also, why are you looking for me? Inside the room, Ningyu casually found a chair and sat down. He looked straight at Xia Tao and said indifferently, Humph. Xia Tao snorted coldly and said in a deep voice, I advise you to let me go. Otherwise, you will become the enemy of our Heavenly Dragon Empire. Heavenly Dragon Empire's people? Ningyu frowned slightly and said, I have no enmity with your Heavenly Dragon Empire. Why are you looking for me? No grudges? Xia Tao laughed coldly and said, "Don't think that I don't know that all of you want the immortal crystal vein as well. Could it be that Elder Tianji and the others leaked the news?" Ning Yu's heart skipped a beat. He vaguely felt that things weren't that simple. Logically speaking, Zhang Chang had been concealing his aura, and the strongest person in their group was only a pinnacle sky supreme. Even if there were a few pinnacle heavenly sovereigns, it shouldn't attract the attention of the four empires. After all, there were several sage-level warriors in the four empires. Everyone below the sage level was like an ant. Ning Yu didn't believe that the sages of the four great empires would notice someone in the sky supreme realm. Thinking of this, Ning Yu said without batting an eyelid, "I am determined to get the immortal crystal mine because I have already reached an agreement with Xiao Guoqing to mine it together." Ha ha ha! As if he had heard the funniest joke in the world, Xia Tao threw his head back and laughed maniacally. "That fool, Xiao Guoqing, is only a late-phase heavenly sovereign. If it wasn't for the key, do you think that he would still be alive? Don't be naive. Let me give you a piece of advice. Give up on the celestial crystal mine as soon as possible. Otherwise, if you invite trouble upon yourself, no one will be able to save you." The more Xia Tao spoke, the more excited he became. He even raised his head proudly. "The strongest among you is a pinnacle heavenly sovereign. No, it should be that half-step saint outside. I'll give you guys a chance. Join our heavenly dragon empire and work as laborers when we mine the immortal crystal vein. Not only will you be able to escape this calamity, but you'll also be able to survive. I got a few immortal crystals." Xia Tao's current appearance was extremely arrogant. He did not put Ning Yu in his eyes at all. Ning Yu had indeed given Xia Tao the opportunity to be arrogant. He saw Ning Yu sitting on a chair with his eyes closed, as if considering Xia Tao's words. "Don't think about it anymore. It's such a good opportunity. If you miss it, you won't get another one." Xia Tao casually pulled a chair and sat beside Ning Yu, advising him with kind words like a friend. "Gotcha!" However, just as Xia Tao sat on the chair, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. His body flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Bang! The sound of ribs breaking, coupled with the sound of a body hitting the wall, resounded in the area. Puchi! Blood spurted from Xia Tao's mouth. You! With no time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, Xia Tao raised his hand with difficulty, pointed at Ning Yu and said in horror, "You don't know what's good for you. Let's see how you're going to walk out of Four Corner City alive." "Why can't I walk out of Four Corner City alive?" Ning Yu asked in puzzlement. "If I've guessed correctly, your heavenly dragon empire only has one initial phase saint and 3 pinnacle heavenly sovereigns in Four Corner City. You've basically lost your ability to fight. Do you think that you can rely on one initial phase saint and 2 pinnacle heavenly sovereigns? Can you kill me?" "Papa!" As he spoke, Ning Yu clapped his hands. Creak! Zhang Chang pushed open the door and walked in. Whoosh! At the same time, Zhang Chang exerted the aura of a sage intermediate stage to suppress Xia Tao. Puchi! How could Xia Tao, who was already seriously injured, withstand the pressure of a middle stage sage? Xia Tao spat out another mouthful of blood. He looked weak and feeble, as if he could breathe his last at any time. Middle stage saint. Xia Tao's eyes widened in disbelief. Originally, he thought that Zhang Chang was only half a step away from the sage realm. The reason why he was knocked down from the void just now was because of a sneak attack. But now it seemed that he was wrong. Very, very wrong. The martial artist in front of him could easily defeat him even if he did not sneak attack. So what if he's at the middle stage sage? But soon, Xia Tao's face returned to normal. To tell you the truth, the cultivation of the martial artists from the heavenly dragon empire in Four Corner City is not as simple as that of an early stage sage. Whoosh! Hearing Xia Tao's words, Ning Yu's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly stared at Xia Tao's face, hoping to find some clues. But unfortunately, Ning Yu did not find any clues. In other words, what Xia Tao said was very likely true. Could it be that the 4 great empires really left behind top experts? Instantly, such a thought came to Ning Yu's mind. Top experts. 4 sage-level experts, immortal crystals were very precious raw crystals. The reason why Ning Yu did not kill Xia Tao was that he wanted to force some information out of Xia Tao. As for directly devouring Xia Tao's memory, Ning Yu was not that stupid. For a top expert like Xia Tao, his sea of consciousness had been sealed. As long as someone dared to forcibly devour his memory, he would immediately explode. Therefore, Ning Yu's method was to see Xia Tao's reaction through Zhang Chong. Now that Xia Tao's reaction was normal and he was not that afraid, Ning Yu's idea was confirmed. However, the only thing that Ning Yu could not be sure about was whether the Heavenly Dragon Empire had left behind a late-stage Sky Supreme or a peak Sky Supreme. And whether the other 3 great empires had left behind any top experts or not. It seems that I have to go to Elder Tianji and let him do the calculation. I can't just think about the benefits and be unwilling to do anything. Ning Yu stood up from the chair and walked slowly to Xia Tao. He said, "The cultivation of the Heavenly Dragon Empire's martial artists is either a late-stage Sky Supreme or a peak Sky Supreme. I won't tell you. Ha ha ha, I want to see if you dare to kill me." Xia Tao seemed to have grasped Ning Yu's weakness. He laughed wildly again. "Once you kill me, the experts of the Heavenly Dragon Empire will find out. At that time, you won't be able to live. Noisy." Ning Yu left these 2 words and then walked straight out of the room. Seeing Ning Yu leave, Xia Tao was a little confused. He did not know what Ning Yu meant. But soon, Xia Tao realized the seriousness of the problem, because Zhang Chong stayed behind. "What do you want?" "I can tell you, the Heavenly Dragon Empire doesn't want it." Seeing Zhang Chong walking towards him, Xia Tao's pupils shrank. Bang! Ning Yu did not want to interfere with Zhang Chong's actions. After leaving the room, Ning Yu walked towards the 2nd floor of the square restaurant. Ning Yu knew that Zhao Guocheng was still waiting for him there. Chapter 1784. The middle-aged man who attacked Xia Tao is at least an early-stage saint. On the 2nd floor of the square restaurant, Zhao Guocheng sat in his room with a grave expression. Because Zhang Chong's aura was only released from his room on the 4th floor, Zhao Guocheng didn't know Zhang Chong's exact cultivation level. However, from the fight between Zhang Chong and Xia Tao, Zhao Guocheng could tell that Zhang Chong was an early-stage saint. That Ning Yu is only an early-stage Sky Supreme. How could he defeat Xia Tao in one move? Could he be a reincarnated monster, like Yunmu? Zhao Guocheng's thoughts didn't linger on Zhang Chong for long. He quickly shifted his attention to Ning Yu. Compared to Zhang Chong's cultivation level, Zhao Guocheng was more curious about Ning Yu's battle prowess. No matter how he looked at it, it was a little exaggerated for an early-stage Sky Supreme to defeat a pinnacle Sky Supreme. At the very least, none of the people Zhao Guocheng knew could do it. I'll give the key to Ning Yu first. I should return to the city lord's mansion as soon as possible and discuss with Elder Tianji and the others what to do next. Zhao Guocheng looked at the closed door, got up and walked out of the room. Creak! Zhao Guocheng hadn't taken a few steps when the door was pushed open from the outside. Zhao Guocheng was stunned when he saw the young man standing at the door. "You're here. I was just about to go look for you." As he spoke, Zhao Guocheng reached into his robe and took out the key to open the bronze door and handed it to Ning Yu. "There's no hurry." Ning Yu waved his hand, indicating that Zhao Guocheng didn't need to hurry. Zhao Guocheng was slightly stunned. He was a little confused. "You're the one who asked for the key, and you're the one who said there's no hurry. What does that mean? Ning Yu didn't care what Zhao Guocheng was thinking. He walked to a chair and sat down. Then, Ning Yu looked at Zhao Guocheng without saying anything. Seeing Ning Yu's actions, Zhao Guocheng swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Ning Yu and Zhao Guocheng didn't say anything. For a moment, the room became quiet, so quiet that it was a little scary. Drip, drip. As time passed, beads of sweat appeared on Zhao Guocheng's forehead. On the other hand, Ning Yu was calm and composed, without any signs of discomfort. Ning Yu. After another 10 minutes, Zhao Guocheng finally couldn't take it anymore and said, I still have something to do in the city, Lord's mansion. How about I give you the key first? Well, put it on the table. Ning Yu gently knocked on the table and said, after receiving Ning Yu's confirmation, Zhao Guocheng hurriedly took out the key and threw it on the table. After throwing the spoon on the table, Zhao Guocheng stood up and walked out of the room. Go back and tell the Elder of Heavenly Secrets and Yunmu that cooperation is cooperation. I do not wish to be schemed against by others. The moment Zhao Guocheng's right foot stepped out of the room, Ning Yu's voice rang in his ears. After a brief moment of silence, Zhao Guocheng strode out and disappeared from Ning Yu's sight. Buzz. Not long after Zhao Guocheng left, the space beside Ning Yu fluctuated and a middle-aged man appeared. Did you get any useful information from him? Ning Yu asked with his eyes narrowed. There's a seal in his sea of consciousness. I don't dare to devour his memories. Zhang Chang shook his head and answered honestly. Follow Zhao Guocheng to the city, Lord's mansion. Protect him at the same time to prevent him from being targeted by the Heavenly Dragon Empire. After thinking about it, Ning Yu decided to let Zhang Chang follow Zhao Guocheng. Since he could find the square restaurant, it meant that the Heavenly Dragon Empire already knew about his contact with Zhao Guocheng. On the surface, the Heavenly Dragon Empire still had one initial stage saint and 2 pinnacle saint realm cultivators. Even if they only sent a pinnacle heavenly supreme, they could easily capture Zhao Guocheng. Although Zhao Guocheng looked useless, he wasn't. Zhao Guocheng couldn't die before he was sure that the key in his hand could open the bronze gate. Swish! After receiving the order, Zhang Chang's figure flickered and disappeared. After Zhang Chang disappeared, Ning Yu called an helping and the white-haired old man out. And Haoping's cultivation was still in the late-stage saint realm, but the white-haired old man's cultivation had dropped to the initial stage saint realm. It could be seen that the white-haired old man was in a terrible situation. Ning Yu, give me half a celestial ascension grass. I need it. The white-haired old man looked at Ning Yu as if he had seen a life-saving straw. As long as you give me half a celestial ascension grass, I'll tell you a big secret. The white-haired old man was in a sorry state right now. If he didn't have the celestial ascension grass, his cultivation might be stuck at the initial stage saint realm for the rest of his life. The side effect of using his trump card was completely exposed. And Haoping, guard the square restaurant. Ning Yu ignored the white-haired old man and said to Haoping, inform me immediately if anyone suspicious is approaching. Understood. And Haoping responded, then tore open the void and dived in. Tell me what the secret is first. After watching Haoping leave, Ning Yu turned to stare at the white-haired old man and said calmly, if the secret is big enough, I can consider giving you some celestial ascension grass. Give me the celestial ascension grass first. The white-haired old man gritted his teeth. Humph! Ning Yu harumphed coldly. Don't refuse a toast, only to drink a forfeit. All right. The white-haired old man chose to compromise after being rebuked by Ning Yu. The reason why I was trapped in the dungeon of the Emperor Palace instead of being killed by the founder of the Emperor Palace is that I know of a place where the celestial spirit source energy is. The founder of the Emperor Palace is called Emperor Mo. He is currently at that place. Ningyu listened quietly because he knew that the white-haired old man would definitely tell him where the place was. As expected, when the white-haired old man saw that Ningyu had no reaction, he could only continue. That place is the Thousand Demons Ridge. When the words Myriad Devil's Ridge came out of the white-haired old man's mouth, Ningyu's expression gradually turned solemn. Ningyu had heard of the Thousand Demons Ridge before. It was known as one of the 3 most terrifying places in the celestial spirit realm. It was rumored that there were many peerless villains buried in the Thousand Demons Ridge. Although those peerless villains were already dead, their skeletons were still intact. Moreover, the skeletons of those peerless villains also possessed terrifying combat power. Of course, peerless villains were not the reason why Ningyu's expression was solemn. Ningyu's expression was solemn because the human demon had mentioned the Thousand Demons Ridge when he was chatting with him. The human demon had personally said that there was a passage to a high-level plane within the Thousand Demons Ridge. In other words, from the deepest part of the Thousand Demons Ridge, one could directly reach a high-level plane. As for how to pass through that passage, Ningyu had no idea. Now that he heard the Thousand Demons Ridge again, Ningyu's expression naturally turned solemn. Can you give me the Celestial Ascension Grass now? Chapter 1785. I told you. Upon hearing the white-haired old man's words, Ningyu's solemn expression eased a little, and he said indifferently, "If the secret is big enough, I can consider giving you some Ascension Immortal Grass." What do you mean? The white-haired old man's expression changed, and he asked in a deep voice. In the white-haired old man's opinion, Ningyu did not want to give him the Ascension Immortal Grass, so he used this excuse to brush him off. The origin source was in the Thousand Demons Ridge. If this kind of information could not be considered a big secret, then what was? Nothing. Ningyu shrugged and continued, "I already know about the Thousand Demons Ridge. I don't need you to tell me. Although you know about the Thousand Demons Ridge, you don't know that the origin source is there." The white-haired old man was almost roaring. Fortunately, Ningyu had set up a soundproof array around the room. Otherwise, the white-haired old man's roar would have been heard by others. "You're still hiding something from me." Ningyu suddenly felt that the white-haired old man seemed to have something that he was not telling him. Just the origin source in the Thousand Demons Ridge would not be able to deceive the founder of Emperor God Palace. No, the white-haired old man's eyes flickered, and he did not dare to look into Ningyu's eyes. "If you don't want to say it, forget it. I still have something to do. You can reflect on yourself first." Ningyu stood up and walked out of the room. Actually, people like the white-haired old man were definitely full of secrets. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Ningyu would not kill him rashly. After all, he obtained the Ascension Immortal Grass from the white-haired old man. Who knew? He might be able to get something from the white-haired old man in the future. Therefore, Ningyu's attitude towards the white-haired old man was not to kill him and let him cause trouble. Of course, the white-haired old man could not even protect himself now. Even if he was asked to cause trouble, he did not have the ability to. Looking at Ningyu's back view, the white-haired old man's eyes were slightly dazed, and he looked very conflicted. He wanted to tell Ningyu his secret in exchange for the ascending immortal grass, but his heart was extremely unwilling. Even when he was trapped in the dungeon by the founder of the Emperor Palace, he did not reveal the secret in his heart. Instead, he found an excuse to trick the founder of the Emperor Palace into going to the Myriad Demons Ridge. Now, he would definitely not be willing to sacrifice his secret in exchange for the Ascension Immortal Grass. Pucci. However, things always developed in an unpredictable direction. As soon as Ningyu left the room, the white-haired old man spat out a mouthful of dark red blood, and his aura became extremely weak. "I am willing to tell you the real secret." The white-haired old man used the last of his strength to roar towards the outside of the room. Thump! After saying this, the white-haired old man's body went limp, and he directly collapsed to the ground. Who went he in? Deal with him. Don't let him die for now. Outside the room, Ning Yu's footsteps paused for a moment, and then he immediately strode out of the square restaurant. There were many things to do, and Ning Yu knew that this was not a good time to get to the bottom of the white-haired old man. Anyway, the white-haired old man was under his control. After solving the problem in Square Restaurant, it would not be too late to have a good talk with him. Crack! What Ning Yu did not know was that the moment he left the room, in a secret room in Square Restaurant, an old man suddenly smashed the jade cup in his hand on the ground, and it broke into pieces. Next to the old man, two middle-aged men held their breath and did not dare to speak at all. Xia Tao is dead. The old man's expression was calm, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. He said lightly, "What do you think of this matter?" "It must be the Jean family who set us up." A middle-aged man with a scar on the left side of his face clenched his fists, and he could not hide the anger on his face. "That's right. If it were not for the Jean family, Xia Tao would not have gone to the Square Restaurant." The other middle-aged man was also furious, and he said fiercely, "We must let the Jean family know that we are not to be trifled with." "Let the Jean family know that you are not to be trifled with?" The old man was not angered by the words of the two middle-aged men. He raised his brows and said, "On the surface, the Jean family only left 2 initial Saint Realm experts and a late Heavenly Supreme. Can the 3 of us win against them?" The old man's question made the two middle-aged men's faces turn a little ugly. However, the middle-aged man with a scar on the left side of his face still braced himself and said, "Although we are not a match for the Jean family, our Xia family still has someone in the void. Shut up!" Hearing this, the old man suddenly slammed the table and said coldly, "The 4 great empires all have backup plans, but our Xia family is not the only one. In the future, I hope that you will use your brains to think before doing anything. If anyone dares to act recklessly again, don't blame me for being impolite." When the old man said those words, his attitude and tone were extremely cold. Those who did not know better would think that the two middle-aged men had made a big mistake. "Right, you two get ready. I'm going to the city, Lord's mansion." Ignoring the reaction of the two middle-aged men, the old man stood up and left the room. The two middle-aged men exchanged glances with each other before obediently following behind the old man and also disappearing from sight. At the same time, in a secret room not too far away from the old man, there were 3 cultivators, 2 initial Saint Realm and 1 late Heavenly Supreme. Among the 3 cultivators, the 2 initial Saint Realm cultivators were called Jin Ji and Jin Cheng, while the late Heavenly Supreme was called Jin Zhen. Xia Tao was killed. Jin Ji was not tall, but he looked very sturdy. Jin Ji narrowed his eyes and said, "I'm worried that the Xia family will contact Ning Yu." "Don't worry." Jin Cheng waved his hand and said, "The Xia family does not have the guts for now." After a short pause, Jin Cheng continued, "Even if the Xia family makes contact with Ning Yu and the others, it will only be beneficial for us." Jin Ji raised an eyebrow and asked, "What benefit?" Jin Cheng smiled evilly. "We can join forces with the Cloudy Wind Empire and the Purple Sun Empire to get rid of the Heavenly Dragon Empire. I'm more than happy to have one less person to share the immortal crystals with. What do you think we should do now?" Jin Ji continued to ask. "It's simple." Jin Cheng's lips curled up and he said coldly, "Let's go to the City Lord's mansion and have a good chat with Xiao Guocheng." "Isn't it inappropriate to go to the City Lord's mansion now?" Jin Ji frowned. In Jin Ji's opinion, it was unwise to go to the City Lord's mansion now. The other 3 empires knew that the elder of Tianji was in the City Lord's mansion. The other 3 empires knew that the Jin family and the elder of Tianji had a grudge against each other. If they went to the city lord's mansion now, they might attract the hostility of the other 3 empires. If they did not kick the Xie family out, the Jin family might be kicked out instead. Listen to me. We must go to the city lord's mansion now. Chapter 1786. City Lord's Mansion, Main Hall. The main hall wasn't small, but it seemed a little empty at this moment. To be precise, there were only 3 people in the main hall. Tianji Laoren, Yun Mu, and Talisman Marshal Supreme. Do you think that Ningyu will help me? Yun Mu paced back and forth in the main hall with a conflicted expression, plotting against Ningyu, dragging Ningyu into the water, and forcing him to participate in the immortal crystal mine were all Yun Mu's plans. As his cultivation increased, Yun Mu's memories from his past life kept awakening. However, the more memories he awakened, the more conflicted and uneasy he became. After going through all the information about Ningyu in his mind, Yun Mu gritted his teeth and said, "If Ningyu detained Zhao Guocheng, what should we do?" "Don't worry, Ningyu definitely won't detain Zhao Guocheng." Tianji Laoren waved his hand and said, "You don't know. I secretly asked Zhao Guocheng to change the key. I'm afraid." Yun Mu's voice became softer and softer. In the end, he didn't continue. "Zhao Guocheng gave the key to Ningyu," Tianji Laoren said with certainty. "That's why Ningyu definitely won't detain Zhao Guocheng." "What?" Yun Mu's expression changed, and he said hurriedly, "You gave the key to Ningyu. What should we do?" Although Yun Mu appeared to be regretful, he was still furious when he found out that the key was in Ningyu's hands. "You know better than me that the key isn't in our hands. Even if Ningyu obtained the immortal crystals, he would only give us a few pieces at most. He wouldn't give us a large amount of immortal crystals." Yun Mu was on the verge of exploding. The conflicted feeling he had just now disappeared at this moment. Yun Mu even had the urge to run to the square restaurant and snatch the key back. Swoosh! At this moment, a figure flew in from outside the main hall and landed directly in the main hall. Zhao Guocheng. Seeing this figure, Yun Mu's expression turned gloomy, and he said coldly, "You still dare to come back. Tell me honestly, why did you give the key to Ningyu?" Zhao Guocheng had just returned and wanted to discuss an important matter with Yun Mu and the others. Who would have thought that he would be questioned by Yun Mu? His mouth opened and closed, but Zhao Guocheng didn't know what to say, so he could only turn his gaze to the Elder of Heavenly Secrets. Yun Mu becoming enemies with Ningyu is not a wise decision. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets said, "Ningyu is an indescribably noble person. Whether or not we can survive this crisis will depend on Ningyu's assistance." Crisis? What crisis? Yun Mu's mind stirred as he hastily asked. "Look at me. I forgot the most important thing." Zhao Guocheng slapped his head and said hurriedly, "When I came back from the square restaurant, there were at least 3 groups of people following me." "Do you know who is following you?" Elder Tianji frowned. The Jin clan of the Qianye Empire, the Xie clan of the Heavenly Dragon Empire, and the Lan clan of the Cloudy Wind Empire. "I'm not sure if the Purple Sun Empire has caught up," Zhao Guocheng answered honestly. "How did you know about this?" "Since they chose to follow you secretly, they definitely wouldn't let you discover them." Yun Mu's tone was cold as he said with a straight face, "To be honest, Yun Mu didn't believe Zhao Guocheng's words. Zhao Guocheng was only a late Heavenly Supreme. If the people from the 3 empires were following him, he definitely wouldn't be able to discover anything. One must know that the leaders left behind by the 3 empires this time around were all sage-level cultivators. Yun Mu knew very well what kind of person Zhao Guocheng was. He might be strong in the square restaurant, but in front of a sage it would be difficult for him to block even one move. I wasn't the one who discovered it." Zhao Guocheng shook his head and said, "When I left the square restaurant, Ningyu had a middle stage sage follow me. It was that middle stage sage who discovered it. Where is that middle stage sage now? The elder of heavenly secrets knew who Zhao Guoqing was talking about as soon as he said middle stage sage. Zhang Chang. There were a total of 3 sages beside Ningyu. Middle stage sage Zhang Chang, late stage sage white-haired elder, and an helping. Therefore, as soon as Zhao Guocheng said that the elder of heavenly secrets determined that it was Zhang Chang, he asked me to come in first and stayed outside the city, Lord's mansion, to stop those who followed me, Zhao Guocheng said. Oh no. The elder of heavenly secrets' expression changed. Zhang Chang was only a middle stage sage. If the middle stage sage from the Purple Sun Empire didn't come, everything would be fine. At least Zhang Chang wouldn't be killed. However, once the middle stage sage from the Purple Sun Empire came, Zhang Chang would definitely be in danger under the siege of the experts from the 4 empires. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets had a lot to do with the Elder of Heavenly Secrets forcing Ningyu to stay in the square restaurant. Without the Elder of Heavenly Secrets as a middleman, Yun Mu couldn't force Ningyu to succeed. Therefore, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets didn't want to see anything happen to Zhang Chang, which would lead to a complete break with Ningyu. Let's go out now. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets immediately decided to go out. Although the Elder of Heavenly Secrets knew that if he went out now, he might face the people from the 4 empires. However, if he didn't go out now, he would completely offend Ningyu. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets had the guts to offend the 4 empires. Offend Ningyu? Unfortunately, even if the Elder of Heavenly Secrets had the guts, he wouldn't dare to take action. The best solution was to show his attitude in advance and stand on the same side as Zhang Chang before Ningyu came over. Otherwise, when Ningyu arrived, he would find that they were still in the city lord's mansion, while Zhang Chang was alone outside dealing with the 3 empires. No, it should be the 4 empires. What would Ningyu think then? Therefore, he had to go out immediately. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets didn't care about what Yun Mu thought. His figure flashed, and he left the hall, after the Elder of Heavenly Secrets left. Sigh. Yun Mu and the Venerable of Talisman Martial Arts looked at each other and sighed. They tore the void and went in together. Seeing the Elder of Heavenly Secrets and Yun Mu leave, Zhao Guoqing stood on the spot in a daze. Zhao Guoqing didn't understand why they would go out foolishly when there was a mid-stage sage guarding the city, Lord's mansion. Even if the Elder of Heavenly Secrets and Yun Mu went out, they wouldn't be able to help that mid-stage sage. Instead, they would only add to the chaos. Forget it. Since everyone is going, I'll go out too. After thinking about it, Zhao Guoqing sighed and hurriedly followed them. There were some things he couldn't figure out, and Zhao Guoqing didn't want to think about it. Anyway, even if the sky collapsed, there would be someone taller to hold it up. He had already given the key to Ningyu. Even if both sides really fought, it would be difficult to affect him. Zhao Guoqing even made up his mind. As long as Ningyu's side showed signs of defeat and the situation was hopeless, he would immediately use his secret technique to leave. As the saying went, where there's life, there's hope. Chapter 1787. You're the middle stage saint martial artist beside Ningyu? For Corner City, outside the main gate of the city governor's mansion, Jin Ji crossed his arms in front of his chest and stared at Zhang Chang with great interest. He said, "Let me advise you to leave as soon as possible if you don't want to die. Otherwise, I'll let you know why flowers are red." "Why are you talking nonsense with him?" Jin Cheng shrugged and said, "He's just a middle-stage saint martial artist. It's not a big deal to kill him." "Humph, you're quite arrogant." Zhang Chang snorted and said gloomily, "I'd like to see how you two are going to kill me. Oh, you're quite hot-tempered." Hearing Zhang Chang's words, Jin Ji raised his eyebrows and said disdainfully, "There are a total of 5 early-stage saint martial artists in our 4 empires. There's even a middle stage saint martial artist. Do you think you can escape under our siege? Stop! Stop! As soon as Jin Ji's voice fell, the old man on the other side hurriedly waved his hand. The old man who waved his hand was none other than the early stage saint martial artist from the Xia family of the Heavenly Dragon Empire. Xia Liang, what do you mean by this? Jin Ji clenched his fists and roared at the old man. The 4 empires have joined forces. You can't help outsiders. Jin Ji was very angry. At such a critical moment, Xia Liang dared to make trouble and put him in a difficult position. Jin Ji secretly made up his mind that once the 4-corner city was closed, the first thing he would do was to kill Xia Liang. I won't deny that the 4 empires have joined forces, but then Xia Liang changed the topic and said lightly, the enmity between the Jin family and Ning Yu has nothing to do with the 3 empires. You can solve it yourselves. If I'm not mistaken, this middle-stage saint martial artist has a close relationship with Ning Yu. Don't tell me you want to use us to help you eliminate Ning Yu's people? Nonsense. This is utter nonsense. Jin Ji was so angry that his nose was crooked. He cursed Xia Liang 70 or 80 times in his heart. Although he cursed him, Jin Ji would not clash with Xia Liang again at this time. His gaze shifted towards the Cloudy Wind Empire and the Purple Sun Empire. It was fine if the Xia family refused to help, but if the Cloudy Wind Empire and the Purple Sun Empire refused to help, he would have to bear the consequences. After all, Zhang Chang's cultivation was at the middle stage of the Sage Realm. It was impossible for him and Jin Cheng to defeat him. Xia Liang is right. Our Lan family doesn't want to get involved in the feud between you and Ning Yu. After a moment of silence, Lan Ming, an early-stage saint from the Cloudy Wind Empire's Lan family, said, As for the immortal crystal lode, I hope that the Jin family will not hold us back. Take care of your own business. The other early-stage saint warrior of the Lan family, Lan Hua, did not have such a good temper. He said coldly, We have no enmity with this middle-stage saint warrior. Why should we make him our enemy? Whoosh! The Lan family's rejection seemed to be within Jin Ji's expectations. He took a deep breath and looked at the middle-stage saint from the Purple Sun Empire. Ziyun. Her name was Ziyun, a saint born and raised in the Purple Sun Empire. Rumor had it that Ziyun's real battle prowess had reached the late-stage saint level. Some even said that Ziyun's battle prowess was comparable to a peak saint. Of course, rumors were just rumors. Very few people had proven it. However, one thing was enough to prove that Ziyun's battle prowess was powerful. This time, the Jin family of the Qinya Empire, the Lan family of the Cloudy Wind Empire, and the Xia family of the Heavenly Dragon Empire had experts hidden in the dark. Only Ziyun had come from the Purple Sun Empire. There were no experts hiding in the void. Therefore, Jin Ji was not particularly worried that the Lan and Xia families had refused to help. As long as Ziyun was willing to help, capturing Zhang Chang would be a piece of cake. Ziyun's attitude was what Jin Ji was most concerned about. You and... Ziyun frowned and pointed at Zhang Chang. Ziyun seemed to feel that it was inappropriate to ask such a question. She paused for a moment before continuing. What kind of feud does the Jin family have with Ning Yu? Jin Ji opened his mouth when he heard Ziyun's question. There was a hint of nervousness in his eyes. It seemed that Ziyun did not intend to help. He could not possibly say that the Jin family had formed a feud with Ning Yu in order to control the Elder of Heavenly Secrets, could he? Jin Ji patted his head and began to seek help from the experts of the Jin family who were hiding in the void. Standing still, Jin Ji fell into silence. After a while, Jin Ji's gaze became firm again. He said to Ziyun, The Celestial Spirit Realm Jin family is the royal family of the Qinya Empire. There are at least 80 geniuses who have died in the hands of Ning Yu. There is an irreconcilable feud between the Jin family and Ning Yu. Tui. Xia Liang was the one who ruined Jin Ji's plan. Xia Liang spat and said coldly, "The royal family of the Qin Empire is not even a top force in the pellet formation continent. How could there be 100 geniuses? Please think carefully before you talk big. Don't make a fool of yourself. You're speaking up for Ningyu. Are you colluding with Ningyu to seize the immortal crystal mine?" Jin Ji finally couldn't take it anymore and cursed. "Not long ago, I personally saw a pinnacle heavenly sovereign of your Xia family going to the four-way restaurant, and he still hasn't come out. I'm afraid that the one colluding with Ningyu isn't my Jin family. It's your Xia clan, right?" "Bullshit." Xia Liang roared, "Thief calling thief, it's all your fault. If you didn't tell us false information, how could Xia Tao die?" "What does that have to do with me?" Jin Ji said coldly. "At this time, Xia Tao might still be in the square restaurant. In my opinion, we should, all of you, shut up." Xia Liang and Jin Ji's quarrel made Ziyun's face pale. Roaring, Ziyun continued, "If anyone doesn't want the immortal crystal vein, then speak up and get lost." Seeing Ziyun's rage, Xia Liang and Jin Ji shut their mouths at the same time, standing together with Ziyun. They felt that their level was a little lower. After all, Ziyun's level was the same as those hidden in the void. "All of you aren't speaking?" Ziyun's gaze slowly swept across the faces of Xia Liang and the rest as she said in a solemn voice, "All of you better behave yourselves. Without my permission, don't blame me for not giving you any face if you continue to argue. I'll kick you out." "Humph." Xia Liang and Jin Ji looked at each other and snorted at the same time. Then they turned their heads away and stopped talking. "Let me ask you." Ziyun turned her head and looked at Zhang Chang. "Zhao Guocheng went to the four-way restaurant not long ago. Then, is the key in Ningyu's hands? Or is it still in the city lord's mansion?" Chapter 1788. Zhao Guocheng did go to the square restaurant. Zhang Chang wasn't particularly disgusted by Ziyun's attitude. He sorted out his thoughts and said, "But I'm not sure if the key to open the bronze door is in Ningyu's hands." "Not sure?" Ziyun knitted her brows and said, "Call Zhao Guocheng out. I have something to ask him." "You can ask me anything." "There's no need to call Zhao Guocheng." At this moment, a faint voice came from the city lord's mansion. Creak! Then, an old man slowly walked out from the city lord's mansion. Behind the old man, 2 women and 1 man walked out side by side. Old Man Tianji. The old man was none other than Old Man Tianji. As for the 2 women and a man, they were Yun Mu, the Talisman Supremacy, and Zhao Guocheng. After coming out of the city lord's mansion, Old Man Tianji said, "I can clearly tell you that the key isn't in Zhao Guocheng's hands." "Oh." Ziyun raised her brows and looked at Old Man Tianji. Due to her long seclusion, Ziyun's understanding of Old Man Tianji was limited to some books or from word of mouth. This was the first time Ziyun saw Old Man Tianji. This person isn't simple. Ziyun's first impression of Old Man Tianji was that he wasn't simple. However, Ziyun wasn't a fortune-teller. She sorted out her thoughts and said, "If the key isn't in Zhao Guocheng's hands, could it be in yours?" Old Man Tianji smiled and said, "It doesn't matter who has the key. What's important is the ownership of the immortal crystal vein." "What do you mean?" Ziyun's expression was a little unsightly as she coldly said, "The ownership of the immortal crystal vein had already been discussed by the 4 empires. Each empire would get a quarter. Now that Old Man Tianji was involved, was he trying to get a share?" "Nothing." Old Man Tianji shrugged and said, "I've calculated it. There's at most 1,000 immortal crystals in the vein. If it's divided among the 4 empires, each empire will only get 250. So what?" Ziyun frowned. "Isn't it obvious? 1 less is 1. As he spoke, Old Man Tianji's gaze fell on Jin Ji. "Old fart, are you trying to sow discord between us?" Seeing that Elder Tianji intended to kick him out, Jin Ji immediately flew into a rage and said, "I think you're tired of living." The next moment, Jin Ji released the aura of an early-stage sage and pressed down on Old Man Tianji. Humph. However, before Jin Ji's aura could reach the Elder of Heavenly Secrets, a cold snort resounded. There was no doubt that it was Zhang Chang who snorted. Zhang Chang took a step forward, standing firmly in front of Tianji Lauren. An aura that was even more terrifying than Jin Ji's was emitted from Zhang Chang's body and collided with Jin Ji's aura. Chi-chi. The two auras collided, erupting out sizzling sounds. Jin Ji was only at the early stage of the Sage Realm, while Zhang Chang was at the middle stage of the Sage Realm. They were competing in momentum, and the result was self-evident. Zhang Chang had the upper hand, courting death. Seeing that Jin Ji was on the verge of collapsing, Jin Cheng could not stop himself from swearing. His aura abruptly burst out. Chi, 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 chi. Jin Ji and Jin Cheng's aura joined together to resist Zhang Chang's aura. Although he was still no match for Zhang Chang, he was in a much better situation compared to his previous decline. Sigh. Some people really can't do anything right. Right at this moment, Xie Liang sighed lightly and said unhurriedly, "Our original intention of coming to the city governor's estate this time was to test the pressure for Zhao Guocheng and obtain the key to open the bronze door. We're not here to watch some people deal with things. Don't go too far." Since Jin Ji and Jin Cheng were trying their best to resist Zhang Chang's aura, it was the remaining late-stage Sky Supreme from the Jin family who spoke. "Pa." Xie Liang's face turned cold, and he waved his right hand in the air. A crisp sound resounded, and the late-stage Sky Supreme from the Jin family was sent flying. "Elder Tianji, is it really okay for you to do this? Aren't you afraid that they will do something desperate?" Yunmu furrowed his brows and lowered his voice. "If Ziyun stands on the Jin family side, we won't be able to bear the consequences today." In fact, it was no wonder that Yunmu was nervous. At this point, Yunmu had already seen some clues. The people from the 4 great empires weren't as simple as they seemed. At the very least, the 4 great empires had a backup plan. "Don't worry, Ningyu has been here for a long time." Elder Tianji waved his hand, indicating that Yunmu didn't need to worry. "He's here? Where is he? Why don't I see him?" Yunmu turned his head and asked. "Let's wait a little longer. It's not the time to come out yet." Elder Tianji smiled. "All right, let's wait a little longer." Since Elder Tianji didn't want to say anything, Yunmu could only give up. At the same time, in the sky not far from the city, Lord's mansion, 2 cultivators were hidden inside. One of them was Ningyu, and the other was an helping. "Do you know the cultivation of the other 3 cultivators?" Ningyu's expression was solemn as he said in a low voice, "What are your chances of winning if you fight the 3 of them?" "Their cultivation is the same as mine, late-stage Saint Realm, and helping didn't dare to be negligent. Although I can't kill them one-on-one, I can suppress them completely." "I see." Ningyu frowned as if he was thinking about what to do next. "Actually, the 3 of them aren't the strongest. The strongest is that woman." While Ningyu was thinking, and Haoping continued, "Although that woman's cultivation is mid-stage Saint Realm, I can feel a terrifying aura from her. That aura makes my heart palpitate." "That woman?" "Ning, you couldn't help but look at Ziyun." Zhang Chang said that Ziyun was a native saint of the Purple Sun Empire. Her cultivation had reached mid-stage Saint Realm. At that time, Zhang Chang praised Ziyun very much. Now that an Haoping said that Ziyun wasn't simple, it could be seen that Ziyun was most likely pretending to be weak. Rumble. Not long after Ningyu shifted his gaze, an earth-shattering explosion was heard from afar. A great battle broke out in an instant. Jin Ji and Jin Qing knew very well that they were no match for Zhang Chang in terms of momentum. If they fought, they might be able to subdue Zhang Chang with their profound cultivation methods and abundant primordial qi. And helping keep an eye on that late-stage Saint Realm martial artist of the Jin family. Ning Yu's eyes turned cold. He hurriedly ordered in Haoping, who was next to him. Then he sent a voice transmission to Zhang Chang. Zhang Chang, go all out and kill him. Roger. Zhang Chang was still angry that he couldn't go all out. Along with the faint words, there was a sizzling sound of flesh rubbing against the void. Ning Yu. When Jin Jisheng saw the cultivator that suddenly appeared, he did not have much of a reaction. However, the expressions of Yunmu and the heavenly secret elder in the distance changed drastically. From their point of view, no matter how strong Ning Yu was, he could not be a match for an early-stage Saint Realm cultivator. It was not a wise move for Ning Yu to choose to come out of the void and fight Jin Ji, who is an early-stage Saint Realm cultivator. I can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it effortlessly. Jin Ji was overjoyed and even jumped up. Capture Ning Yu. Jin Ji immediately changed his strategy. He gave up on Zhang Chang and captured Ning Yu first. There was a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. Instead, you barged into hell. Looking at Ning Yu approaching him, Jin Ji squinted his eyes and could not hide the excitement in his heart. Rumble. On the other side, Jin Qing and Zhang Chang were fighting. He was suppressed to the point that he could not breathe. Even so, Jin Qing looked very excited on the surface. As long as he could capture Ning Yu, it was not a big deal for him to be suppressed. Ning Yu, run. The Tianji Laoren and Yunmu yelled. The Tianji Laoren even wanted to make a move himself. If it wasn't for the talisman Venerable holding onto the Tianji Laoren and Yunmu, they would have already charged out. The Tianji Laoren charged out because he did not want to see Ning Yu being killed. He wanted to help Ning Yu and build a good relationship with Ning Yu. As for Yunmu charging out, it was mostly because of the key. The key to open the bronze gate was in Ning Yu's hands. If Ning Yu was killed by Jin Ji, the key would definitely fall into Jin Ji's hands. In order to prevent the key from falling into Jin Ji's hands, Yunmu had to make a move. This Ning Yu is indeed not simple. Seeing how Ning Yu faced Jin Ji without any change in his expression, Ziyun's eyes flashed with interest. Let's not talk about whether Ning Yu could withstand Jin Ji's attack. Just his courage alone was enough to make others have a whole new level of respect for him. One must know that when Ziyun was at the middle heavenly supreme stage, she did not dare to fight head-on with an initial stage saint. Could he be someone from a higher plane? Ziyun knitted her brows. She couldn't help unleashing her perception in an attempt to probe Ning Yu. Swoosh! However, before Ziyun's perception could land on Ning Yu's body, a powerful perception swept over from her body. No wonder he dared to go against the Jin family. So there's someone behind him. Ziyun immediately retracted her perception when she sensed the late-stage saint's aura sweeping over her. She no longer cared about the fight between Ning Yu and Jin Ji. Die. It's best if you kill that old fart, Jin Ji. In the Heavenly Dragon Empire, Xie Liang clenched his fists and secretly cheered for Ning Yu. As for the Lan family of the Cloudy Wind Empire, they were also leaning towards Ning Yu's side. If it was not for their feelings, the other three empires would most likely hit him when he was down. Heaven-shattering. When he was a dozen steps away from Jin Ji, Ning Yu immediately took out the black dragon's sword with a thought. Ning Yu channeled the vitality in his body into the black dragon's sword and recited a mantra before he suddenly swung his sword. Whoosh! As Ning Yu uttered the words heaven-shattering, a terrifying sword radiance separated from the black dragon's sword and slashed towards Jin Ji. What? Jin Ji had thought that Ning Yu could not withstand a single blow, but his expression changed when he saw the sword radiance that Ning Yu had unleashed. Although Jin Ji's expression changed, he was indeed an initial stage saint from a higher plane. He immediately reacted by mobilizing the vitality in his sea of consciousness to form Yuan Qi sword radiance, which collided with Ning Yu's sword radiance. The two terrifying sword radiances collided. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion resounded in the area. Uft! Following that, the two figures retreated rapidly. Just from the distance they retreated. It was clear that the two of them were evenly matched. However, Jin Ji spat out a mouthful of blood from the impact, while Ning Yu stood unscathed. Only his ankles had sunk into the ground. Whoosh! After a single blow, the surroundings erupted into an uproar. Ning Yu was only a mid-heavenly supreme, while Jin Ji was an initial stage saint. Not only was a mid-heavenly supreme not killed by a single blow from an initial stage saint, he even had a slight advantage. Chapter 1790. I want you to die. Being stared at by the strange eyes around him, Jin Ji let out a hysterical roar. Shameful, extremely shameful, so shameful. Jin Ji was very angry. If looks could kill, he would have already done it. But unfortunately, looks could not kill. It could only let everyone see his angry mind at this time. There are many people who want me dead. Who do you think you are? Ning Yu leaped up and pulled his feet out of the pit. He shrugged his shoulders and said, I advise you to surrender as soon as possible. Otherwise, if I kill you later, it won't just be you who will lose face, but the entire Jin family. Jin Ji almost went crazy. Obviously, he could not accept Ning Yu's mockery. Jin Ji finally broke out in anger. He exerted the aura of the early stage of the sage realm and pressed down on Ning Yu. Crack! However, as soon as Jin Ji exerted his aura, the outcome of the battle on the other side of the battlefield was decided. Zhang Chang raised his right foot and kicked Jin Cheng's chest fiercely. A crisp cracking sound rang out. Several of Jin Cheng's ribs were broken on the spot. Stop! Zhang Chang jumped up and flew to Jin Cheng's side in an instant. He stepped on Jin Cheng's forehead with his right foot and said coldly, If you dare to attack Ning Yu again, I promise that your head will explode. Swish! Jin Ji's face was extremely gloomy, but he had no choice but to withdraw his aura and stop in the air. Ah, what a pity. Seeing Jin Ji stop, Ning Yu sighed and shrugged. I thought I could have a good fight with you today. I didn't expect to encounter such a thing. After saying this, Ning Yu ignored Jin Ji's murderous eyes and went straight to Zhang Chang. Ning Yu did not walk too fast. It could even be said that he was very slow. In the process of moving forward, Ning Yu was very careful. Just earlier, An Helping sent a message saying that the Jin clan cultivator hidden in the void was very angry and seemed like he would charge out at any moment. Ning Yu didn't want to put himself in danger. Even a rabbit would bite when it was cornered. What if the warrior at the late stage of the saint realm of the Jin family, who was hiding in the void, attacked him with all his strength? In order to give the Jin family's experts time to breathe, Ning Yu walked very slowly. About 3 minutes later, Ning Yu came to Zhang Chang. I'm curious. Ning Yu stared at Jin Cheng and asked in confusion, Why does the Jin clan want to catch me? You'll die for offending our Jin family. Jin Cheng's eyes flashed with malice as he said coldly, Not only will you die, but your friends and your clan will all die. Ning Yu frowned slightly and didn't speak. Seeing that Ning Yu didn't speak, Jin Cheng roared and shouted, You'd better let me go, or this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. This day next year will be the anniversary of my death. What a familiar sentence. Ning Yu squinted his eyes as if he was reminiscing about the past. After a while, Ning Yu said to Zhang Chang, Satisfy him. What? Zhang Chang was slightly stunned and asked in confusion, Didn't you hear me? Ning Yu's face was completely gloomy, and a cold voice came from his mouth. I'll let you satisfy him and let this day next year be the anniversary of his death. Boom! When these words fell into Zhang Chang's mind, he was stunned and his head was about to explode. Kill Jin Cheng? It should be known that there was a warrior at the late stage of the Saint Realm in the Void. Wasn't Ningyu afraid that Jin Cheng would risk his life to kill him at this time? Zhang Chang was not the only one who thought so. The other warriors around, and even the warriors at the late stage of the Saint Realm in the Void, thought the same as Zhang Chang. Forget it. It seems that you can't satisfy him. Just when everyone thought that Ningyu was joking, Ningyu waved his hand and said, "Since you can't satisfy him, let me do it." Hearing the first half of Ningyu's words, Zhang Chang, Elder Tianji, and the others showed a look of relief. However, when they heard the second half of Ningyu's words, their pupils instantly shrank and they looked at Ningyu in horror. Swoosh! Ningyu held the black dragon sword in his hand and suddenly slashed out. The black dragon's sword was very fast. The sword slashed through the void and split it in half. As for Jin Cheng, he was lying flat on the ground with his eyes wide open. Swoosh! After the first slash, Ningyu did not hold back and immediately slashed out a second time. The target of Ningyu's second slash was Jin Ji. Looking at the sword radiance flying toward him, Jin Ji raised his right hand and uttered the word "you." "Don't thank me." Ningyu withdrew the black dragon sword and stood side by side with Zhang Chang. He said indifferently, "This day, next year, will be the anniversary of your death." Silence. There was a dead silence. The early stage Saint Realm warriors from the Jin family, Jin Ji and Jin Cheng, had been killed by Ningyu one after the other. Whoosh! It was not until a minute after Jin Ji and Jin Cheng died that the surrounding people's eyes shifted to the void not far away. There, the Jin family's late stage Saint Realm warriors were hiding. Crack! 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 In the void, the Jin family's late-stage Saint Realm warrior, Jin Fei, clenched his fists tightly, his face gloomy. Ever since they descended from a high-level plane to the celestial spirit realm, the Jin family had been humiliated again and again. First, the plan in Giant Shield City was easily resolved by Elder Tianji. Then, 2 early-stage Saint Realm warriors were killed by Ningyu. This hatred was greater than the heavens. What's with the 2 of you? Although they hated each other, Jin Fei was not a fool. His main mission in Four Corner City was to obtain the immortal crystals in the immortal crystal mine. If he fought with Ningyu now, his chances of winning were high, and he could vent his anger. However, there was a high chance that he would be kicked out of the alliance. Therefore, before he attacked, Jin Fei needed to ask for the opinion of the 2 late-stage Saint Realm warriors from the Cloudy Wind Empire and the Heavenly Dragon Empire. This is the Jin family's matter. The Xia family will not get involved. The Xia family's late-stage Saint Realm warrior was called Xia Yan. He shrugged and said indifferently. Jin Fei then shifted his gaze to the Lan family's late-stage Saint Realm warrior Lan Chao. "Don't look at me, I'm neutral." Lan Chao waved his hand and said, "As long as there are immortal crystals, everything is negotiable." "I'm so angry. You 2 old foxes. I'll deal with you sooner or later." Jin Fei was furious when he heard Lan Chao and Xia Yan's words. How could Jin Fei not understand the meaning behind their words? "Go ahead and cause trouble. We won't interfere, nor will we get involved." 50 immortal crystals. Jin Fei gritted his teeth and said, "Help me block that late-stage Saint Realm warrior in the void, and I'll give you 50 immortal crystals." Xia Yan and Lan Chao looked at each other and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. They did not need to attack. As long as they blocked a late-stage Saint Realm warrior, they would get 50 immortal crystals. Chapter 1791. People's desires were always infinite. At first, Xia Yan and Lan Chao were very satisfied that each of them could get 25 immortal crystals, but soon their expressions returned to normal. Among them, Xia Yan stretched out a finger and said indifferently, 100. Seeing that Xia Yan and Lan Chao were so greedy, Jing Fei wanted to refuse directly. However, Jing Fei had no other choice in the current situation. Fine, 100 it is. I hope you keep your promise. After glaring at Xia Yan and Lan Chao, Jing Fei tore the void and rushed out. Jing Fei's target was not Ningyu but Zhang Chong. Although Ningyu had killed Jin Ji and Jin Qing, in Jing Fei's view, Ningyu was still not a threat. As long as he could get rid of Zhang Chong, Ningyu would be like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, a fish on the chopping board. Hua! The moment Jing Fei rushed out, and Haoping quickly rushed out to stop him. Whoosh! Whoosh! Unfortunately, Xia Yan and Lan Chao stood on both sides of Haoping, firmly blocking his path. Get out of my way! Seeing the two late-stage sage realm martial artists blocking in front of him, Haoping suddenly stopped and said coldly, "This matter has nothing to do with you. I hope you won't get involved." "I'm sorry. I took your money to get rid of this disaster." Xia Yan and Lan Chao shrugged at the same time, expressing their helplessness. Xia Yan even rolled his eyes and suggested, "Why don't you give us 100 immortal crystals and we can leave immediately?" Kill! Even though it was 1 against 2, Haoping still rushed forward resolutely. In fact, Haoping was very helpless. Ningyu had ordered him to stop Jing Fei. Now that Jing Fei had rushed out to fight with Zhang Chong, he was safe and sound. Once Ningyu became ruthless, he was likely to be finished. Even if it was for Ningyu to see, he had to fight with all his might. Rumble! The fight between the 3 late-stage sage realm martial artists was so spectacular that it even overshadowed the other battlefield. However, the fight between the 3 of them did not attract too much attention. Old Man Tianji, Ziyun, Xiaoliang, and the rest placed their attention on another battlefield. Puchi! Even though Zhang Chong tried his best, he still couldn't block Jing Fei's attack. 3 moves. In just 3 moves, Jin Fei had beaten Zhang Chong until he vomited blood and flew backward. You killed a member of the Jin family. Today, you will be buried with them. After defeating Zhang Chong, Jing Fei moved his feet and walked towards Ningyu step by step. Jing Fei's speed was very slow. As he walked, he increased his aura. He wanted to use his aura to force Ningyu to kneel down. Ka-ka! As the distance between Jing Fei and Ningyu shortened, Ningyu's bones made cracking sounds. Let's see how long you can last. Jing Fei continued to increase the pressure. At the same time, he said coldly, "Anyone who offends the Jin family will not have a good ending." Really? Ningyu stood where he was. No matter how his bones made cracking sounds, his expression did not change. Ningyu even took out a key from his robe and waved it at the tip of his finger. He said softly, "I originally wanted to use this key to open the bronze door. Now it seems like I can destroy it." As he spoke, a dark golden flame appeared on the fingertips of Ningyu's right hand. Chi! Chi! The flame burned the key and made a sizzling sound. Whoosh! Looking at the key on Ningyu's fingertips, Jing Fei instantly withdrew his aura. His face became extremely cold. "Give me the key and I will let you live." Jing Fei resisted the urge to explode and said in a low voice, "Otherwise, I will let you know why the flowers are so red." "You want the key? I'll give it to you." Ningyu showed an indifferent look. He shook his wrist and wanted to throw the key to Jing Fei. Wait. However, before Ningyu threw the key, 3 voices sounded at the same time. Xia Yan, Lan Chao, and Ziyun. Without a doubt, the 3 of them were the ones who spoke. Lan Chao and Xia Yan did not bother to stop Haoping. They quickly flew down and landed not far away from Ningyu. "I think we can talk about the ownership of the key." Xia Yan was the first to speak. He pretended to be nonchalant and said, "The key can open the bronze gate. With the key, we can save a lot of trouble." "That's right. The key should be kept by a reliable person. Lan Chao agreed. What do you mean? Jing Fei's face instantly turned cold. He reprimanded, Am I unreliable? You misunderstood. I'm not saying that you're unreliable. I just feel that there's someone more reliable. Lan Chao was not angered by Jing Fei's reprimand. He waved his hand and said, I feel that old man Tianji is more reliable. The key can be kept by him. I agree. At this moment, Ziyun, who had been silent all this while, spoke. Ziyun's opinion was the same as Lan Chao's. She wanted the key to be kept by old man Tianji. I have no objections. Xie Yan agreed as well. Good, very good, very good. Jing Fei had suffered a huge blow today. The people from the other 3 empires had agreed to this matter. He could only give up and was forced to agree. Crack! Suddenly, the space next to Ningyu split open and an helping emerged from the void. I think we can talk about the distribution of the immortal crystal mine now. With a flick of his wrist, Ningyu threw the key into his sleeve. Then, Ningyu's calm voice rang out in the area. The Cloudy Wind Empire, the Heavenly Dragon Empire, and the Purple Sun Empire will each take 30%. The remaining 10% will belong to us. Do you have any objections? When Ningyu's words rang out, the entire area fell silent. Xie Yan and the others stared at Ningyu in shock. Was it really okay to divide the Jin family's immortal crystals so brazenly? Was Ningyu not afraid of the Jin family's revenge and Jing Fei's madness? However, since it was not their business, Xie Yan and the others did not want to ask. If Ningyu could really get rid of Jing Fei, each of them would get an extra half of the immortal crystals. Why not? Therefore, when Ningyu and Jing Fei met, Xie Yan and the others did not show any reaction on the surface, but were actually very excited. I think you're tired of living. Due to his anger, Jing Fei's body could not help but tremble. If he was not afraid of Xie Yan and the others getting in the way, Jing Fei would have killed Ningyu long ago. Given the current situation, Jing Fei did not dare to take the initiative to attack. Putting aside the fact that his mission in Four Corner City was to obtain the immortal crystals, even if he took the initiative to attack, he might not be able to kill Ningyu. After all, the late-stage sage next to Ningyu was not weak. I am indeed tired of living. Come and kill me if you can. Chapter 1792. You. Jin Fei was so angry that his lungs were about to explode after being rebuked by Ningyu. Jin Fei really wanted to kill Ningyu, but he knew very well that this was not the time to do so. Once he made a move, there would definitely be someone who would stand up for Ningyu, and helping would definitely stand on Ningyu's side. As for Xie Yan, Lan Chao, and Ziyun, they would most likely stand on Ningyu's side as well. If they really made a move, the Jin family would not be able to get a single piece of the immortal crystals in the immortal crystal vein. Therefore, for the sake of the immortal crystals, Jin Fei could only resist the urge to kill Ningyu and said in a deep voice, I have a suggestion for the distribution of the immortal crystals in the immortal crystal vein. The original distribution will remain the same. Each family will get 1/4 of the immortal crystals. As for Ningyu, I will give him 0.5% of the immortal crystals. Xie Yan and the rest's faces instantly turned ugly when they heard Jin Fei's distribution. According to Ningyu's distribution, each family would get 30% of the immortal crystals. However, according to Jin Fei's distribution, each family would only get 2.5% of the immortal crystals, which was 0.5% less. There were a total of 1,000 immortal crystals in the immortal crystal vein. 0.5% would be 50 immortal crystals. The two distribution methods were a difference of 50 immortal crystals. How could Xie Yan and Lan Chao agree to it? Quickly settle the matter between you all. See you at the back of the mountain in half an hour. Ziyun left those words without any expression on her face. Shortly after, She leapt and flew towards the back mountain of Four Corner City. Xie Yan and Lan Chao looked at each other in a daze as they watched Ziyun leave. In the next moment, Xie Yan led the remaining 3 cultivators from the Heavenly Dragon Empire and disappeared in the blink of an eye. As for Lan Chao, he also tore the void apart with Lan Ming and Lan Hua from the Cloudy Wind Empire. "You've gone too far." After Ziyun and the rest disappeared, Jin Fei's face turned completely gloomy. Ziyun and the rest had made their intentions very clear. Let him duel with Ningyu. Whoever wins will get the reward according to the distribution method. Although Jin Fei was extremely unwilling, this was the best solution at the moment. This saint middle-stage martial artist has basically lost his fighting strength. Jin Fei's gaze shifted. He first looked at Zhang Chong, then at Elder Tianji and Yunmu. Zhang Chong was nothing to worry about, and neither was the Elder of Heavenly Secrets. As for Yunmu, Jin Fei was a little worried. Ever since the giant Shield City incident, all the Jin family experts who had descended from the higher planes knew that Yunmu was the reincarnation of an old monster. Therefore, Jin Fei was very afraid of Yunmu. "Ningyu, give me the key, and I can let bygones be bygones." Jin Fei withdrew his gaze and stared at Ningyu, saying, "I can even be your guide and guide you to a higher plane." Noisy! Ningyu was too lazy to talk nonsense with Jin Fei. He waved his hand and said coldly, "And Haoping, go kill him." Yes, and Haoping never dared to neglect Ning Yu's instructions. "Xiao!" And Haoping's figure flashed and turned into a shadow. In the blink of an eye, he appeared next to Jin Fei. His fist, which contained terrifying primordial qi, fiercely punched toward Jin Fei's head. As a peerless expert of the infamily, and Haoping had killed a saint late-stage martial artist before. Even Jin Fei, who was also a saint late-stage martial artist, did not dare to say that he could withstand this punch with 100% certainty. When a tiger doesn't show its power, you really think that I'm a sick cat. Jin Fei was extremely angry. He gathered all the primordial qi in his sea of consciousness to his wrist and punched backward. The fist, which also contained terrifying primordial qi, collided with Haoping's fist. Bang! The 2 fists collided. An extremely clear sound rang out. Then, 2 figures flew backward at the same time. Judging from the distance, they flew back, and Haoping and Jin Fei were evenly matched in this blow. You don't seem to be worried. While Haoping and Jin Fei were fighting, Ningyu moved and came before Tianji Lauren. He asked doubtfully, and Haoping and Jin Fei should be evenly matched. If Ziyun and the rest suddenly come back, the situation might be disadvantageous to us. Why aren't you worried at all? What's there to worry about? Tianji Lauren smiled and said, "Although Haoping and Jin Fei are evenly matched, there's still a saint late-stage, white-haired elder. Once that white-haired elder comes out, won't Jin Fei lose in a matter of minutes?" The reason why Tianji Lauren was not worried was because of the white-haired elder. Little did he know that the white-haired elder was currently in a weakened state. Without the help of the immortal ascension grass, he might not be able to recover in his lifetime. There's a small change in the situation. Ning Yu felt that he had to explain it to Tianji Lauren. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for Tianji Lauren to think that the situation was still under his control. The reason why Ning Yu dared to go against Jin Fei was because he knew that the 4 great empires were not united. As long as he was willing to sacrifice his own interests, the other 3 great empires would definitely not stand on Jin Fei's side. However, nothing was absolute. As long as the Jin family had one more saint late-stage warrior, the other 3 great empires would probably have to compromise. What change? Tianji Lauren was slightly startled and asked in confusion. Due to some reason, the white-haired elder may not be able to fight in a short time. Ning Yu said, "So I wanted Hao, 'to stay here and stall Jin Fei." We'll go to the back mountain and enter the fairy crystal lode. Wow. Ning Yu's words set off a storm in the hearts of Tianji Laoren and Yunmu. To be honest, the reason why they dared to gamble was that there were two Saint late-stage warriors on Ning Yu's side. Now that Ning Yu said that one of the Saint late-stage warriors could not fight, how could they not be shocked? To put it simply, if the white-haired elder could not fight and an helping was stalled here, even if they went to the fairy crystal lode, they would not be able to get many fairy crystals. It was even very likely that they would be eliminated by Xia Yan. Yun Mu looked at Tianji Laoren, wanting to confirm if what Ning Yu said was true. Tianji Laoren flicked his wrists and kept making gestures. After a while, Tianji Laoren took a deep breath and his face turned livid. What should we do? Tianji Laoren's reaction made Yunmu understand everything. Without the support of a Saint late-stage warrior, how could they talk about fairy crystals? What are you afraid of? We'll deal with it when it comes. Let's go. Ning Yu waved his hand and looked indifferent. He moved his feet and walked directly to the back mountain of the square city. Stop! Seeing Ning Yu leaving, Jean Fei was furious and wanted to rush over. However, an helping stuck to Jean Fei like a dog's skin plaster, making Jean Fei unable to get away. Let's go too. Tianji Laoren's face was gloomy. He made another divination and then gritted his teeth and decided to follow. Although there were many variables in what would happen next from the divination, Tianji Laoren chose to believe in Ning Yu's luck. Chapter 1793. For Corner City, Back Mountain. In front of a huge bronze door, Cloudy Wind Empire, Heavenly Dragon Empire, and Purple Sun Empire. The people from the three empires stood on both sides of the bronze door. In the middle were Ning Yu, Elder Tianji, and the others. Before opening the bronze door, there's something I want to discuss with you. Ning Yu did not open the bronze door immediately. Instead, he played with the key in his hand and said calmly, regarding the ownership of the immortal crystals in the lode, I want 20%. Do you have any objections? 20%? Xia Yan and the others were slightly stunned when they heard Ning Yu's words. Then their faces darkened. According to the previous agreement, Ning Yu could only get 10% of the immortal crystals, and the remaining 90% would belong to the three empires. Now that Ning Yu asked for 20% of the immortal crystals, how could Xia Yan and the others agree? However, no matter how much they disagreed, no one came forward to refute Ning Yu. No one wanted to stand out. If Ning Yu dared to come here, it meant that he must have a backup plan. What if Ning Yu had a late-stage sage martial artist with him? He wanted benefits, but did not want to stand out. That was what Xia Yan and the others thought. Since no one has any objections, I'll take it as a yes. Seeing that no one refuted, Ning Yu shook the key in his hand and walked toward the bronze door. Perhaps he was giving Xia Yan and the others time to think, but Ning Yu's speed was not too fast. In fact, it could be said to be very slow. It took him 3 minutes to walk such a short distance. 3 minutes later, Ning Yu stood in front of the bronze door and flicked his wrist to throw the key into the hole on the bronze door. Wait. However, as soon as Ning Yu raised his wrist, a low voice was heard. Do you have a different way of distributing the immortal crystals? Ning Yu seemed to have expected that someone would stop him. He flicked his wrist and threw the key into his storage ring. Then he stared at Ziyun and said, Why don't you tell me? Whoosh! Ning Yu's words caused everyone's gaze to shift over to Ziyun. It's not a problem if you want 20% of the immortal crystals, but you have to bring out the strength that matches it. Xia Yan and Lan Chao are both in the late phase of the Saint Realm. Although I'm in the middle phase of the Saint Realm, I'm not weak. The three of us are responsible for mining the immortal crystals. Tell me, why are you getting 20% of the immortal crystals? That's right. Why do you want 20% of the immortal crystals? In my opinion, giving you 10% of the spiritual crystals is too much. Since Ziyun had taken the lead, Xia Yan and Lan Chao started to criticize Ningyu. The more they talked, the more exaggerated they became. In the end, they didn't even want to give Ningyu a single celestial crystal. They wanted to eliminate Ningyu completely. What the hell is Ningyu trying to do? Seeing that Ningyu had angered everyone, Yunmu lowered her voice and complained to Old Man Tianji. Originally, we could have gotten 10% of the immortal crystals, but now it looks like it'll be hard for us to even get one. Since we're already here, let's just take things as they come. Although Old Man Tianji didn't say much, his meaning was clear. Believe in Ningyu. Since Ningyu dared to increase the immortal crystals from 10% to 20%, it means that he has the confidence to do so. But I'm worried that Old Man Tianji's words weren't enough to make Yunmu feel at ease. I'm sorry, but I've changed my mind. Before Yunmu could finish her words, Ningyu waved his hand and said, Originally, I only wanted 20% of the immortal crystals. Now, I feel that you should give me 40%. Russell, when Ningyu said those words, Xia Yan and Lan Chao were dumbfounded. Not only were Xia Yan and Lan Chao dumbfounded, even Ziyun was a little dumbfounded. Don't you understand the situation? Now that we have the upper hand, no matter how you look at it, you're in a weaker position. Why do you still dare to ask for 40% of the immortal crystals? Did he lose his mind? You said that if you want as many immortal crystals as you want, you have to show the corresponding strength. At this moment, Ningyu shrugged and said, The Cloudy Wind Empire, the Heavenly Dragon Empire, and the Purple Sun Empire all have many sages. Moreover, the most powerful one is a late-stage sage. If that's the case, as long as I have a late-stage sage on my side, wouldn't it be reasonable? Of course, I'll get 5% of the immortal crystals. You're making it sound better than a song. Why don't you ask your late-stage sage to come out? Xia Yan curled his lips and said disdainfully, Let me make this clear first. The late-stage sage who fought with Jing Fei doesn't count. Lan Chao looked vigilant and said, Jing Fei is still very powerful. It's still unknown who will win. Ning, you did not respond to Xia Yan and Lan Chao. Ningyu was very clear that Xia Yan and Lan Chao were just talking. The one who could really make the decision was Ziyun. Once Ziyun agreed, Xia Yan and Lan Chao would definitely not have any objections. Yes. After a moment of silence, Ziyun nodded and said, As long as you can get another late-stage sage on your side, we have no objections to you taking 5% of the immortal crystals. Roar. As soon as Ziyun finished speaking, a loud roar came from Ningyu's body. Boom! Ziyun was completely stunned when she heard this shocking roar. Qilin. Others might not have heard anything, but Ziyun knew very well. The one who had just roared was a genuine Qilin. Gulp. Apart from Ziyun, even Xia Yan and Lan Chao, who were next to her, were horrified. Even Ziyun, a native of the immortal spirit realm, knew that it was a Qilin roar, let alone the two of them who had come from a higher realm. They did not expect Ningyu to have a Qilin with him. The key is in my hands. Without my help, it will be very difficult for you to open the bronze door. So, I want 40% of the immortal crystals. You guys don't have any objections, right? Ningyu's words rang in the ears of Xia Yan and Lan Chao. This time, Xia Yan and Lan Chao did not refute, because their thoughts were no longer on the immortal crystals, but on how to inform the experts of their families. A living Qilin was a rare commodity even in the higher planes. Compared to a living Qilin, what was an immortal crystal mine? Let's lure him into the mine first, then work together to capture that Qilin. Xia Yan and Lan Chao looked at each other and communicated with each other using a secret technique. Ziyun narrowed her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking about. I agree. Ziyun did not think for long before she said in a deep voice, There's no time to lose. Hurry up and open the bronze door. I guarantee that I will give you 40% of the immortal crystals. straightforward. Ningyu smiled. He flicked his wrist and threw the key into the hole on the bronze door. Click. The key made a crisp sound when it was turned. Creak. Chapter 1794. Swoosh. Once the bronze door was completely opened, Ningyu, Ziyun, Xie and Lan Chao took the lead and rushed in. The second wave of people to enter the bronze door were the remaining people from the Cloudy Wind Empire and the Heavenly Dragon Empire. Yun Mu, Elder Tianji, and the rest were the last to enter the bronze door. Although they were the last to enter the bronze door, Yun Mu and the rest were not dejected. On the surface, it seemed that the first to enter the bronze door would be the first to reach the immortal crystal vein. However, Elder Tianji and Yunmu knew very well. The immortal crystal vein must be very dangerous. An immortal crystal vein located in a low-level plane. There might be a super expert or a super demonic beast guarding it. Therefore, it was not a bad choice to be the last to enter. Speed up! Lan Chao could not take it anymore after the slow start and shouted, "Let's reach the immortal crystal vein as soon as possible and mine all the immortal crystals in a day. You guys go first. This is my speed anyway." Ningyu did not intend to speed up and continued to advance slowly. Ningyu's actions made Xie Yan and Lan Chao gnash their teeth in anger, but there was nothing they could do. After all, he had a Qilin with him. It was better not to provoke Ningyu before they knew the Qilin's true strength. If the Qilin was a late-stage sage, they would be dead meat. After all, a late-stage sage Qilin's overall strength was enough to kill a cultivator of the same cultivation level. It's fine if it's slower. Lan Chao took a deep breath and resisted the urge to explode. We're not far from the immortal crystal vein anyway. We should be able to reach it in 10 minutes at this speed. Ningyu glanced at Lan Chao, but did not say anything. 10 minutes wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. At least for Lan Chao, these 10 minutes were very hard to bear. During these 10 minutes, Lan Chao felt that Ningyu was laughing at him and mocking him. However, Lan Chao did not resist for the sake of the bigger picture. Instead, he was thinking about how to use a secret technique to inform the higher-ups of the Lan family. Xie Yan's thoughts were similar to Lan Chao's. Initially, when he discovered that Ningyu had a Qilin on him, his first thought was to inform the powerhouses of the Xie family. However, on second thought, Xie Yan felt that he could not use the secret technique. At the very least, he could not use it around Ningyu. Who knew if that Qilin had locked its aura onto them? It would be fine if he didn't. But once the Qilin locked its aura on them, and they happened to use a secret technique and were discovered by the Qilin, the consequences would be dire. Ningyu was not someone to be trifled with. He could give up a warrior at the late stage of the Saint Realm to stall Jin Fei. Maybe he could also give up Kylin to stall them. Drip. Time continued to pass. 10 minutes had finally passed. According to our investigation, the cave ahead is the entrance to the immortal crystal vein. Xie Yan pointed to the cave not far away and said, "Ningyu, you can bring the Qilin out now. Ziyun, Lan Chao, and the Qilin. The four of us will do our best to mine the vein. Let's try to excavate the entire immortal crystal mine within a day." You want the Qilin to participate in the mining of the immortal crystal vein? Ningyu looked at Xie Yan as if he was looking at an idiot and said lightly, "Do you want me to ask him to come out and have a good talk with you?" Roar. The moment Ningyu's voice fell, the Qilin let out another earth-shattering roar. Hearing the Qilin's roar, Xie Yan's face turned pale and he was stunned on the spot. The Qilin's wrath. As a warrior at the late stage of the Saint Realm, Xie Yan really felt the Qilin's anger this time. If Xie Yan didn't know the Qilin's cultivation before, he now knew the Qilin's real cultivation. The late stage of the Saint Realm. From the Qilin's terrifying aura, Xie Yan could roughly judge the Qilin's cultivation. It was indeed at the late stage of the Saint Realm. "I'll let you show off for a while." Xie Yan glared at Ningyu fiercely. Then he jumped and was the first to rush to the cave where the immortal crystal vein was located. Swoosh! Seeing Xia Yan rush out, Lan Chao did not stay idle. His figure flashed, following closely behind Xia Yan as he dashed out. You knew about it? Ziyun stood where she was and did not show any intention of rushing out. She turned around and looked at Ningyu. She frowned and said, Aren't you afraid of offending the Xia family and the Lan family by doing this? You should know that there are peak sages among the warriors from their 2 clans who descended from the high-level plains this time. Before Ning Yu could reply, the expressions of Xiaoliang, Lanming, and the others changed slightly, and they revealed serious expressions. At this time, no matter how stupid Xiaoliang and Lanming were, they knew that they had been tricked by Ningyu. However, they still did not know how Ningyu had schemed against their 2 families. How about working together? Ningyu casually glanced at Xiaoliang and Lanming and said indifferently, Let's split it 50-50. You're really wishful thinking. Ziyun still frowned and did not agree to Ningyu's suggestion immediately. However, it could be seen that Ziyun was already tempted. 50% of the immortal crystals had a special meaning to her. Boom! At this moment, an earth-shattering rumble suddenly erupted from the cave not far away. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Xia Yan and Lan Chao's terrified screams accompanied the earth-shattering rumble. Seems like I was right. It really is Dan Qi. Looking at the figure fighting with Xia Yan and Lan Chao, Ningyu revealed a relieved expression. Although Ningyu looked calm on the surface, he was actually quite nervous. If not for little Qilin telling him that there was a super strong Dan Qi at the cave entrance, he definitely would not have been able to tell. The Dan Qi in front of him had reached the terrifying late-stage Saint Realm and was only a step away from the peak Saint Realm. Ning, you could basically conclude that Xia Yan and Lan Chao together were definitely not a match for this Dan Qi. Seems like the celestial spirit state is not simple. It was not that Ningyu had not met Dan Qi before and had even fought with him. He knew that there was an army of Dan Qi in the celestial spirit state. However, Ningyu was very clear that Dan Qi, who was born and raised in the celestial spirit state, definitely could not reach the late-stage Saint Realm. Therefore, there was a high possibility that this late-stage Dan Qi came from a higher plane. Recently, the celestial spirit state had undergone earth-shattering changes. First, the demon spirit state army invaded and several continents fell. Then, the higher planes frequently sent people down to fight for the source energy. Now that he saw a late-stage sage Dan Qi, how could Ningyu not be surprised? Although he was surprised, Ningyu said to Ziyun, I'll leave these 2 small fries to you. What are you doing? Chapter 1795. How is that possible? Ningyu took a few steps back and looked at Ziyun in shock. I'm only a mid-heavenly supreme cultivator, while Xia Yan and Lan Chao are both late-phase Saint Realm cultivators. How am I capable of dealing with the 2 of them? Then what do you mean? Ziyun's face darkened when she heard Ningyu's words. You're not dealing with Xia Yan and Lan Chao, but you want me to deal with the remaining people from the Cloudy Wind Empire and Heavenly Dragon Empire? What are your intentions? Nothing much. I just want to tell you that Xia Yan and Lan Chao will definitely be killed by Danzhong. Ningyu shrugged and said casually, My mission is to deal with Dan Qi after he wins. Are you sure you're not joking? Ziyun's mouth was slightly agape as disbelief filled her face. If Ningyu said he would deal with Xia Yan and Lan Chao, Ziyun would not have such a reaction. However, Ziyun was extremely shocked that Ningyu wanted to deal with Danzhong. She even looked at Ningyu as if he was an idiot. In Ziyun's view, Xia Yan and Lan Chao should be stronger than Danzhong in terms of overall strength. After all, Xia Yan and Lan Chao came from a higher plane and definitely had trump cards. But now, Ningyu said that Danzhong would win. How could Ziyun not be shocked and astonished? What's the point of joking? Just watch. Dan Zhong will definitely win. Ning Yu smiled. Why don't we swap? I'll deal with the remaining cultivators from the Cloudy Wind Empire and Heavenly Dragon Empire, while you stay behind to deal with Dan Zhong and Xie Yan. Ziyun hesitated when she heard how certain Ningyu was. At this moment, Ziyun's thoughts had already changed. Perhaps Dan Zhong could really defeat Xie Yan and Lan Chao? The more she thought about it, the more she felt that it was possible. Bang! Bang! However, just as Ziyun was about to make her choice, something happened at the cave entrance that left her dumbfounded. Xie Yan and Lan Chao punched out at the same time. One left and one right. 2 punches landed on Dan Zhong's body at the same time. 2 crisp sounds rang out. Then, like a kite with its string cut, Dan Hen flew straight towards the entrance of the cave. I'll deal with the remaining people from the Heavenly Dragon Empire and the Cloudy Wind Empire. You go and deal with the victor of the battle over there. The sudden change caused Ziyun to be slightly stunned. But very quickly, Ziyun recovered from her shock. She hurriedly said to Ningyu, when everything is settled, we will split the celestial crystals in the celestial crystal vein in half. Xiao. As she spoke, Ziyun's silhouette flashed and she charged out. In the Heavenly Dragon Empire's Xie clan, aside from a late-phase Saint Realm like Xie Yan, there was also an initial-phase Saint Realm Xie Liang and 2 pinnacle Heavenly Sovereigns. Apart from Lan Chao, who was a late-stage saint, the Lan family of the Cloudy Wind Empire also had Lan Ming and Lan Hua, who were early-stage saints. On the surface, Ziyun's cultivation might seem to be in the middle phase of the Saint Realm, but her true fighting prowess was extremely terrifying. Rumble. Ziyun didn't make a move, but the moment she made a move, it was a killing move. In just a single exchange, she had killed 2 pinnacle sky supremes from the Xie family. You, how dare you offend our Xie clan? Xie Liang's pupils shrank, and he even stuttered. So what if I offended you? Ziyun couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Xie Liang. She dashed out again and locked her target on Xie Liang. Let's leave quickly. Seeing that Ziyun had chosen to attack Xie Liang, Lan Hua and Lan Ming felt that their opportunity had come. They immediately tore the void and entered. Because Lan Chao was still fighting Dan Zhong, Lan Hua and Lan Ming did not choose to leave after entering the void. Instead, they moved closer to Lan Chao. Puchi, perhaps because she didn't notice Lan Hua and Lan Ming leaving. Ziyun's main attention was on Xie Liang. 3 moves. In just 3 moves, Xie Liang was beaten to the point where he vomited blood and his face was pale. Die. Ziyun grabbed the void with her right hand and quickly pushed it out. Boom! A terrifying Yuan Qi shock wave almost reached Xie Liang's neck in the blink of an eye. No! Looking at the Yuan Qi shock wave, Xie Liang's pupils shrank and he hurriedly wanted to beg for mercy. However, before Xie Liang could finish begging for mercy, he stopped abruptly. The terrifying shock wave directly swept past Xie Liang's neck. Thump! As for Xie Liang, his eyes were wide open and his body suddenly fell backward. At this moment, early-stage Saint Xie Liang, who came from a high-level plane, had died in battle. Gasp! Gasp! In the void, Lan Hua and Lan Ming gasped at the same time when they saw that Xie Liang had been easily killed. Their strength was actually almost on par with Xie Liang. Xie Liang had been killed in 2 or 3 moves. It was conceivable that they would not be able to last more than a few moves if they went out. Fortunately, Lan Chao is about to kill Dan Zhong. Lan Ming turned his head to look at the situation at the cave entrance and felt slightly relieved. As long as Dan Zhong was killed, Ziyun would definitely not dare to cause trouble for them. This was because no matter how strong Ziyun was, it would be difficult for him to fight against Lan Chao and Xie Yan at the same time. Puchi! Puchi! Dreams were plentiful, but reality was harsh. Lan Ming's relief did not last for long. His hair began to stand on end. 2 consecutive sounds of people vomiting blood could be heard from the battlefield not far away. Lan Ming was very familiar with the two martial artists who vomited blood. One of them was Xie Yan, and the other was Lan Chao from the Lan family. Die. When it rains, it pours. Just as Xie Yan and Xie Liang were vomiting blood from the bombardment, Zi Yun quickly rushed over. Now that Xie Liang was dead, Xian's target naturally fell on Lan Ming and Lan Hua. Help! At such a critical moment, Lan Ming and Lan Hua shouted without hesitation. How dare you! Lan Ming and Lan Hua's roars attracted Lan Chao's attention. Lan Chao was extremely furious when he saw Ziyin rushing over with a murderous aura. He shouted with all his strength, "Whoosh!" However, Lan Chao had overlooked one thing. He was fighting Danzhong. As the saying went in a battle between experts, even the slightest mistake could result in death. When Lan Chao was fighting Danzhong, he had shifted his attention to Lan Hua and Lan Ming. This was a huge mistake. He had to bear the consequences of his own mistake. Danzhong opened his mouth wide and spat out two beams of cold light. The beam of cold light aimed at Xie Yan was blocked by Xie Yan with all his might. However, it was very effective against Lan Chao's cold light. Although Lan Chao dodged slightly to the side at the critical moment, his left arm was still cut by the cold light, leaving a long bloody scar. "I'll deal with you later." Lan Chao knew the severity of the situation. To be more precise, Lan Chao had chosen to abandon Lan Ming and Lan Hua so that he would be invincible. "Lan Chao, you can't just ignore us." Lan Chao's action of abandoning a pawn to save the king had completely made Lan Ming and Lan Hua despair. Chapter 1796. However, without Lan Chao's protection, how could the two of them escape? Moreover, since Diyun had decided to kill them, she would not give up until she achieved her goal. Her figure flickered as she waved her hands repeatedly. In an instant, several yuan-chi shockwaves swept out, rushing towards Lan Ming and Lan Hua from all directions. Fight! Under the threat of death, people could always erupt with astonishing energy. Lan Ming and Lan Hua were like that. The two of them looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. In the next instant, the two of them retaliated at the same time, wanting to fight to the death with Ziyun. "Ningyu, do you really think that Pale Puppet will win?" After watching Ziyun's battle, Elder Tianji's gaze shifted to the other battlefield. In Elder Tianji's opinion, Lan Ming and Lan Hua would definitely lose. Although there might be some twists and turns in the process, the outcome would not be unexpected. The terrifying battle strength that Ziyun had displayed when she killed Xie Liang was comparable to a peak late-stage sage. In other words, even two mid-stage sage experts could be instantly killed by Ziyun, not to mention Lan Ming and Lan Hua, who were early-stage sage experts. Since the outcome was already decided, Elder Tianji's attention shifted to the other battlefield. In truth, Elder Tianji had secretly divined just now. According to the divination, Danzhong and Xie Yan were evenly matched and either had an overwhelming advantage. But from Ningyu's words, it seemed that Danzhong would definitely win. This situation naturally made Elder Tianji very puzzled. Ever since he had come into contact with Ningyu, Elder Tianji had begun to have some doubts about the divination art that he had learned. This was because there had been several times when the results had deviated from what his divination had shown. It was easy to explain once, but what about the second and third time? As the only person in the immortal spirit realm who had grasped the divination art, it was reasonable for Elder Tianji to doubt the authenticity of the divination art. According to the records, the original divination art was not in the immortal spirit realm, but in a higher plane. Therefore, the divination art that Elder Tianji had grasped was learned from a handwritten copy. More or less. Ning Yu's reply made Elder Tianji roll his eyes, a little speechless. When he was conversing with Xian earlier, He swore that Dan Ming would definitely win. But now he sounded uncertain again. How could the Elder of Heavenly Secrets not be speechless? Then, are you really going to deal with the winner of Dan Hua and Lan Chao's group later? The Elder of Heavenly Secrets asked again. No matter who won, Ning Yu would have to face the winner in the end. In truth, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets also hoped that Dan Qi would win. This was because Lan Chao and Xie Yan were both at the late stage of the Sage Realm. Once they won, Ning Yu would have to deal with the two late-stage Sage Realm warriors. Once Dan Zhong won, Ning Yu would only have to face himself. Ideally, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets hoped that Dan Ling would win. Of course, all of this was under ideal circumstances. As for which side would win, Old Man Tianji had no idea. That was because he couldn't divine it at all. Wrong. Ning Yu shook his head and shifted his gaze in another direction. Ning Yu was looking at the bronze gate. It's not me dealing with the victor between them, but Ning Lu. Ning Lu? The Elder of Heavenly Secrets opened his mouth in disbelief. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets knew Ning Lu very well. He was at the mid-stage of the Sky Supreme level, and his overall strength was comparable to a peak Sky Supreme. If Ning Yu had asked Qilin to fight, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets might not have been so surprised. After all, Qilin was very powerful. But the Elder of Heavenly Secrets couldn't understand why Ning Yu had asked Ning Lu to fight. Not to mention Ning Lu's age. Even if he was very powerful, he was only equivalent to a peak Sky Supreme. Asking Ning Lu to step forward and help. Wasn't this clearly a trap for Ning Lu? Don't be fooled by Ning Lu's appearance. How could Ning Yu not know what the Elder of Heavenly Secrets was thinking? He waved his hand and said, Ning Lu looks like a child of 6 or 7, but he has lived for tens of thousands of years. How is that possible? Before the Elder of Heavenly Secrets could react, Yun Mu blurted out, There can't be someone in the celestial spirit realm who has lived for tens of thousands of years, unless he survived from the ancient times. So what if you believe me or not? Ning Yu rolled his eyes and said, Your current mission is to swiftly retreat and not let the aftershock of the battle affect you. I'll say the ugly words first. If you're killed by the aftershock of the battle, then I won't step forward to help. Don't worry, I promise I won't let you help. Yun Mu's expression was a little ugly, but now that Yun Mu needed Ning Yu's help, he could only choose to keep his mouth shut. Crack! Crack! Just as Yun Mu shut his mouth, on the other side, Ziyun threw 2 punches at Lan Ming's and Lan Hua's hearts. 2 cracking sounds rang out. Lan Ming and Lan Hua's eyes widened, and their auras plummeted. What a pity! Ning Yu stared at Lan Ming and Lan Hua, whose auras were rapidly weakening, with a look of pity on his face. If he devoured both of them, he would at least be able to reach the late stage of the Sky Supreme, or even the peak stage of the Sky Supreme. Ning Yu wasn't a fool. The energy in Lan Ming and Lan Hua's bodies wasn't pure, so he couldn't purify it with his own ability. Unless someone was willing to help, he could only watch helplessly with so much energy. However, although Lan Ming and Lan Hua couldn't devour it, the distant Dan puppet could. Ning Yu had been observing it for a long time. The Dan puppet fighting Lan Chao and Xie Yan was both a Yuan Qi Dan puppet and a Soul Dan puppet. In other words, if he devoured the late-stage Saint Dan puppet, Ning Yu's cultivation would reach the peak stage of the Sky Supreme without any obstruction. After all, the energy in the Dan puppet's body was extremely pure. Done. I'll leave the rest to you. Just when Ning Yu was letting his imagination run wild, Ziyun's figure flashed and flew to Ning Yu's side. She said indifferently, No matter who wins in that battle, I will not make a move. Don't worry, I definitely won't let you help. Ning Yu smiled and didn't say anything else, focusing on the battlefield. Don't be fooled by Ning Yu's solemn and confident appearance. In truth, he was more nervous than anyone else. Since it was a battle, all sorts of changes could happen. As Ning Yu contacted Ning Lu, he also communicated with the little Qilin in the Tower of Ascension. Prepare for both. Ning Yu didn't want to be anxious at that time. If Dan Puppet won, then Ning Yu would let Ning Lu fight it out. Ning Lu was the world tree, so he had a fatal restraint on Dan Puppet. But if Lan Chao and Xia Yan won, they would have to rely on the little Qilin. However, the little Qilin's cultivation was still at the early stage of the Sage Realm, and it hadn't advanced to the mid-stage of the Sage Realm. Chapter 1797. If Xie Yan and Lan Chao won in the end, Ning Yu would really be worried that the little Qilin wouldn't be their opponent. After all, a skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. The little Qilin wasn't like Ning Lu, who had a fatal restraint on Xie Yan and Lan Chao. Up to you. Seeing Ning Yu's solemn expression, Ziyun shrugged her shoulders and no longer spoke. Since Ziyun and Ning Yu didn't speak, Old Man Tianji and Yunmu naturally wouldn't speak foolishly. In an instant, the entire area became quiet. As time passed, the battle in the distance became more and more intense. At the start of the battle, Xie Yan and Lan Chao still had a slight advantage. But as time went on, their decline became more obvious, especially after Lan Chao was ambushed by Dan Zhong. The two of them were in an absolutely disadvantageous position. If this situation carried on without any external help, Xie Yan and Lan Chao would definitely lose. Could it be that he really knew that Pill Puppet would win? Ziyun glanced at Ning Yu from the corner of her eyes, feeling extremely shocked in her heart. At the start, when Ning Yu said that Pill Puppet would win, Ziyun's reaction was to snort disdainfully and not believe it. But now, the situation was very clear. Without any external help, Dan Zhong would definitely win. Under this kind of situation, Ziyun's view of Ning Yu naturally wavered. Looks like I have to be careful in case I get tricked by him. Retracting her gaze, Ziyun secretly became cautious. Before Ning Yu appeared in Four Corner City, the immortal crystal vein was divided among the four empires. After Ning Yu appeared, he practically used a forceful method to remove the Thousand Leaf Empire's gene family. Not only that, Ning Yu even used the hidden pill puppet at the entrance of the immortal crystal vein to deal with Xie Yan and Lan Chao. Furthermore, Ning Yu conveniently dragged her into the water. Ziyun knew that she shouldered a huge responsibility, and she absolutely couldn't fall in Four Corner City. Swish! At this moment, a figure suddenly sped over from the direction of the bronze door. In the blink of an eye, this figure appeared in front of Ning Yu. Ning Lu. Without a doubt, this martial artist was Ning Lu, who hurried over. Ning Yu, aren't you being too unkind? You didn't even tell me if there was something good. Ning Lu thumped Ning Yu's chest and grumbled. Others might not know that I like Dan Qi, but how could you not know? The world tree had a deadly restraining effect on Danny. The energy contained in Dan Hen's body was also extremely pure. Under such circumstances, Ning Lu definitely liked Dan Xiang and the pleasure of devouring the pure energy. Don't talk big. Take a look at Dan Qi over there and see if there's a way to kill him. Ning Yu pointed at Dan Qi, who was fighting with Xie Yan and Lan Chao in the distance, and said in a low voice, "If you have a way, then stay. If you don't, then get the hell out of here." Hearing Ning Yu's words, Ning Lu's gaze shifted to the distant battlefield. Hiss! Ning Lu sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw what it was. Late-stage saint? Ning Lu turned to look at Ning Yu and said, "And it's the kind of Dan Qi that's infinitely close to the pinnacle of the saint realm? You've probably lost your mind by asking me to kill him, right? Why do you have so much to say?" Ning Yu said, coldly, "The battle over there is still ongoing. After Dan Qi wins, his strength will drop by many times at the very least. I'm just asking if you have a way to kill him. I don't want to hear anything else. Even if Dan Qi's strength will be affected, he'll still have the battle prowess of an early-stage saint, or even a mid-stage saint." At this moment, Ning Lu's expression finally turned solemn, and he said, "To be honest, I'm not his match right now." "If you're not his match, then why are you still talking nonsense here? Get the hell out of here." Ning Yu glanced coldly at Ning Lu, then raised his right leg and was about to kick Ning Lu's butt. At the same time, Ning Yu's consciousness surged, and he began to contact the little Qilin in the Tower of Yuzuan. Actually, unless it was absolutely necessary, Ning Yu really didn't want the little Qilin to come out and help, because once the little Qilin came out, it would definitely reveal its true cultivation. At that time, what if Ziyun saw that the little Qilin's cultivation was only at the early stage saint and she had evil thoughts? Therefore, the best solution was for Ning Lu to take action and kill Dan Qi. "Don't!" Ning Lu hurriedly dodged to the side and dodged Ning Yu's attack. He patted his chest and guaranteed, "If you join forces with me, we can definitely kill that Dan Qi." "Sai, I'd like to join forces with you, but the situation doesn't allow it." Ning Yu sighed. "Do you think there's only one Dan Qi in the immortal crystal vein? There's an early stage, Saint Dan Qi in the vein not far from the cave entrance." Ning Lu hurriedly shifted his gaze to the cave entrance. As I thought, Ning Lu's originally solemn expression became even more solemn. After some thought, Ning Lu said solemnly, "If I can increase my strength a little more, I guarantee that I can kill that Dan Qi." With a thought, Ning Yu took out 2 elixirs from his interspatial ring. He had obtained these 2 elixirs from Lu Chuanji, who had descended from a higher plane, back in the God Emperor Palace. Logically speaking, 1 elixir could allow Ning Yu to advance from the early stage sky supreme realm to the pinnacle sky supreme realm. But because Ning Yu had a special physique, the battle god's physique, 1 elixir could only allow Ning Yu to advance from the early stage sky supreme realm to the mid-stage sky supreme realm. Even so, it was undeniable that the energy contained in the elixir was the most terrifying among all the elixirs that Ning Yu had seen. Ning Yu originally wanted to give one of the 2 elixirs to the Dark Emperor, but it was a critical period now, so Ning Yu decided to give both to Ning Lu. Good stuff! Ning Lu's expression changed when he saw the 2 elixirs in Ning Yu's hand. He immediately snatched the elixir and swallowed it. Buzz! Ning Lu's aura grew stronger and stronger as the elixir entered his stomach. His cultivation, which had been stagnant for a long time, was also rapidly rising. At this rate, Ning Lu's cultivation would soar to the late-stage Sky Supreme Realm in a few minutes at most. Ning Lu's cultivation was already at the pinnacle of the mid-stage Sky Supreme Realm, so it was reasonable for him to advance to the late-stage Sky Supreme Realm after swallowing 2 elixirs. This aura. Ziyun was shocked when she sensed the aura exuding from Ning Yu. Ziyun slapped her head and tried hard to recall. Ziyun was certain that she had sensed this aura before, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't recall what it was. Bang! Just as Ziyun was trying hard to recall, a muffled sound suddenly came from Ning Lu's body. At this moment, Ning Lu directly broke through his limit and advanced from the pinnacle of the mid-stage Sky Supreme Realm to the late-stage Sky Supreme Realm. Good. After advancing to the late-stage Sky Supreme Realm, Ning Lu clearly sensed that the dark golden branches in his body suddenly expanded and turned into 5 branches. Chapter 1798. Crack! Crack! Ning Lu's cultivation had just reached the late Sky Supreme Realm when the outcome of the battle was already decided. Dan Zhong seized the opportunity and threw 2 punches. One landed on Xie Yan's head, while the other landed on Lan Chao's heart. 2 punches, 2 crisp sounds rang out. At that moment, Xie Yan and Lan Chao both fell to the ground. Ziyun, as long as you help us, we guarantee that we won't let you suffer. Although they fell to the ground, Xie Yan and Lan Chao didn't die immediately. Under their strong will to live, the 2 of them shouted at Ziyun, We've decided not to take the immortal crystals in the mine. We'll give them all to you, as long as you help us. This, hearing Xie Yan and Lan Chao's words, coupled with Dan Zhong's weakened state, Ziyun was tempted. In the face of such great benefits, Ziyun really wanted to take the risk and kill Dan Zhong. But Ziyun was clear. If she killed Dan Zhong, it would mean that she'd completely offend Ningyu. Offending Ningyu wasn't particularly scary. After all, Ningyu's cultivation was only at the mid-sky supreme realm. Most importantly, Ziyun couldn't see through the qilin on Ningyu's body. Killing Dan Zhong was easy. The difficult part was how to face Ningyu. It's up to you now. Taking a deep breath, Ziyun didn't seem to hear Xie Yan and Lan Chao's cries for help. She turned to Ningyu and faintly said, I hope that you can deal with that pellet puppet as soon as possible and send someone to mine the divine crystal vein with me. No problem. Ningyu smiled slightly and immediately leaped toward the entrance of the mineral vein. Ning Lu didn't stay idle when he saw Ningyu charge out. In fact, Ning Lu's speed was much faster than Ningyu's, and he arrived at the entrance of the mineral vein before Ningyu. Uft! Uft! The moment Ningyu reached the mine's entrance, Xie Yan and Lan Chao were killed by Dan Zhong. Retreat! Originally, Ning Lu wanted to attack immediately, but when he saw Dan Zhong's condition, he immediately chose to retreat. There was no other reason. Not only had Dan Qi killed Xie Yan and Lan Chao, but he had also used a secret technique to devour them. At this moment, Dan Qi's strength was not at the early stage of the Sage Realm as he had guessed, but at the late stage of the Sage Realm. With Ning Lu's current battle prowess, he could fight against an early stage sage or even a mid-stage sage, Dan Jin. It was even possible for him to use the characteristics of the World Tree to kill Dan Qi, who was in the middle stage of the Sage Realm. But Ning Lu knew his limits. He could kill an intermediate sage Dan Jin, but that didn't mean he could kill an advanced sage Dan Jin. Retreating at this time was the wisest choice. Since you're here, then stay. Before Ning Lu could take a few steps back, the late stage Saint Dan Jin at the entrance of the mine waved his hand and said indifferently, You have an aura that makes my heart palpitate. I need to study it carefully. His voice fell. A terrifying suction force emerged from the body of the late stage Saint Dan Jin and instantly came to Ning Lu's side. Facing such a terrifying suction force, even if Ning Lu resisted with all his might, he wouldn't be able to resist it. He's actually so strong. When Ziyun saw the aura emitted from the body of the late stage Saint Dan Jin, she became serious. Although Ziyun was very confident in her strength and thought that she could sweep away all the martial artists below the peak sage realm. But now, Ziyun knew that she was wrong, and she was very wrong. Normally, the strength of the Dan Jin in front of her was far above hers. I wonder if Ningyu has a way to deal with this Dan Jin. Thinking of this, Ziyun couldn't help but glance at Ningyu, who was about 10 meters away from the entrance of the mine. What should I do? Even though Ningyu was very anxious, his expression was still very calm. Everything was beyond his expectations and out of his control. Logically speaking, in the face of such a situation, unless a late-stage sage joined the battle, the result was already determined. However, Ningyu wasn't someone who would give up so easily. His eyes turned as he secretly thought of a countermeasure. You come over too. Just as Ningyu was letting his imagination run wild, the late-stage sage Dan Jin waved his hand at him and said, I've met 2 interesting little fellows at once. I didn't come in vain this time. Hearing the words of the late-stage sage Dan Jin, Ningyu pretended to be calm and said, If I go over just because you ask me to, wouldn't I lose face? Ha ha ha. Before the late-stage sage Dan Jin could reply, a loud laughter came from the mine. Rustle. Immediately after, a figure slowly walked out of the mine. As expected, he still came out. Ningyu did not turn around, but stared into the eyes of the late-stage sage Dan Jin, trying to find some clues from his eyes. This time, Ningyu had made the right bet. From the reaction of the late-stage sage Danjin, Ning, you could basically confirm that he had an extremely close relationship with the early-stage sage Danjin that came out of the mine. Since they had a close relationship, everything had become simple. Who do you think you are to want face? The figure that walked out of the cave was not very tall and had an early-stage sage cultivation. He went straight to stand beside Ningyu and said disdainfully, "If Guyan didn't think you were interesting, do you think you would be able to live until now?" Ningyu knew that his chance had come. He gently turned around and looked at the early-stage sage Danjin, saying similarly disdainfully, "An early-stage sage cultivation dares to shout in front of me? Do you believe that I can finish you off in 3 moves? Ha ha ha." The early-stage sage Danjin seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. He first threw his head back and laughed wildly, then his voice turned cold, and he said gloomily, "I can kill a small shrimp like you in 1 move. Aren't you afraid of getting your tongue cut off by the wind?" Ningyu said coldly, "If you're not convinced, let's make a bet." "Haha, what kind of bet?" The early-stage sage Danjin was so angry that he laughed and said, "Don't say that I, Shirong, am bullying you. I can let you have 2 moves first. Okay, this is what you said. You can't go back on your word." Seeing that his plan had succeeded, Ningyu said in a clear voice, "If I can defeat you in 3 moves, then Gu Yan will release my friend. If I can't defeat you in 3 moves, then you can do whatever you want me." Ningyu did not say this to Shirong, but to Gu Yan. Although Shirong's status might be higher than Gu Yan's, Gu Yan was stronger. Ningyu did not want to go back on his word and not let him go after going through so much trouble to win. "You're really an interesting little guy." Gu Yan looked at Ningyu with interest and said, "Since you dare to make this bet with Shirong, it means that you are very confident that you can win." You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.